All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 Radnor Township School District regular virtual business meeting. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we begin this evening, I'd like to comment on remarks that I made at last month's business meeting while discussing the mascot selection process. While my comments were really made to illustrate a point about moving forward after a vote is taken, I want to apologize if my comments were unclear or misunderstood to that point. It certainly wasn't my intention to offend anyone. Okay, now moving on, I'd like to report that the board met in executive session on the following dates: January 28th, 2021 to discuss personnel items, February 4th, 2021 to discuss personnel items, February 16th, 2021 to discuss legal items, and this evening, February 23rd, 2021 to discuss legal and personnel items. And with that, we will get underway with our report from students. Welcome. Welcome, Austin.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome, Sammy.
What a freezing February. The first day of the month resulted in a snow day from the first snowstorm, and throughout the following weeks, we had more, but continued with online school when possible. With this being the first time in a while where students were able to interact with the opposite cohort, it was really nice to see everyone. The collective online gathering gave us an opportunity to yet again realize that even though we are in cohorts, we're still experiencing the same things together despite virtual barriers. Not only did the abundance of snow entail complete virtual days, it also meant a lot of shoveling. Wearing masks, a few members of Radnor's men's swimming team were kind enough to travel to their coach's house and dig his car out from underneath all of the snow, as well as shoveling his driveway. On the other hand, it's a little hard to shovel Anke Field, so the optional lacrosse preseason 37. Hopefully both teams can get redemption in their games against Haverford right now. As for hockey, both teams competed last night with the boys varsity team winning with a score of 5-1 against Lower Merion, and the girls varsity team losing 1-7 against Ruston. On the 10th of February, Radnor's dive team competed in the Diving Central League Championships, placing 7th, and on the 12th, both swim teams held their senior nights, finishing a great season before the varsity swimmers started training for Centrals on the 19th and 20th, where the boys placed 4th and the girls placed 2nd. Finishing their season on the 13th, Radnor's wrestling team unfortunately lost with a score of 30-45 with their meet with Garnet Valley. Over the past 2 months, the Black Student Union has also been active. After the presidential inauguration, Black Student Union dissected National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman's beautiful poem, The Hill We Climb. They also continued to discuss the new administration and its call for equity. Now in February, Black Student Union has planned the Radnor High School annual talent show. On February 26th, the club is virtually hosting a talent show for any student to express themselves through dance, singing, cheer, art, music, or a talent of their choice. Those who are participating submitted their performance videos through Dropbox last Friday and are excited for the streaming this Friday. Wrapping up their first activity, student ambassadors invited new students to the high school for an afternoon of lunch and games at the end of January. The event was a success. Starting off, new students and student ambassadors were able to talk and get to know each other. After eating lunch, they proceeded to 2 games and then separated into groups for more fun or breakout rooms for our online participants. Now, student ambassadors tackle a different subject: be the eye and kind. On the first floor, ambassadors hung up a sign saying, "Meet the person responsible for," and below placed mirrors with words attached to them such as actions, grades, and mindset, so Radnor students can be inspired to become their best selves. On the same wall, a larger sign was placed and states, "Be the eye and kind," but with the letter I missing, so students and faculty can take pictures of themselves as a letter I in the word kind. At the beginning of February, High School Musical auditions were due. After submitting their videos, cast hopeful students were anxiously waiting for the final verdict until last Wednesday night when the cast list came out. Now that the roles have been decided, a Zoom meeting is being hosted tonight to discuss the layout of rehearsals, which begin next Monday, and the final production is planned to air May 13th. Finally, before Sammy begins, students have made course selection for the next year, which is always fun, and teachers place their recommendations as well.
Thank you, Austin, and hello, everyone. Throughout these dark winter months, it is important that we do what we can to help people in need. This past month, Students Helping Students partnered with the Wayne Church Food Pantry for Giving Fridays. In fact, this morning was the first one. All month, the club collected ingredients and materials to create meal distribution bags for over 50 families in the area. This morning, students gathered in the cafeteria to use the collected ingredients to assemble lunches for families. Many National Honor Society students took part in helping out to gain some service hours for the second semester. In case you are wondering, I am aware that it is a Tuesday, not a Friday. The idea of Giving Fridays is inspired by the elementary schools whose students donate non-perishable items for the food pantry every Friday. Students Helping Students, though, decided that high school kids would enjoy putting actual meals together. In addition to Giving Fridays, students in the club spread some love by making Valentines at the beginning of February for their pen pals at GW Child's School in South Philly. Another club doing great work is Note in a Tote. Over the past month, members of the club made 2 trips to Philadelphia, even in the snow. Around the city, Note in a Tote distributed handwritten notes in tote bags, along with coats and blankets to people experiencing homelessness. This February, the club gave out close to 40 bags in addition to the coats and blankets. They've adapted to COVID by wearing masks for the entire trip and by limiting the number of volunteers to 5 people per trip. In addition, the tote bags now include homemade masks and extra sanitation products. Note in a Tote has also paired with the local business, Kramer Drive, for a month-long donation drive. They will be collecting notes and donations throughout February with the goal of obtaining enough donations to create 100 bags for Note in a Tote to hand out. A new addition to the RHS clubs is a second set of hands. The club, newly approved, is currently reaching out to local hospitals in order to eventually provide support for families where someone is going through cancer treatment. Plans include helping families grocery shop, setting up big little pairs for kids whose parents are going through treatment, and anything else they can do to take the stress off of the families and allow them to have more quality time to spend together. Another club helping people fight cancer, Radnor's branch of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, spent the past month fundraising, and the outcome is amazing. As a result of each club member reaching out to friends and family, they raised over $10,000. These funds will go to curing lymphoma, leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, and improving the quality of the lives of patients and their families. One exciting event that happened this past weekend was Model UN's first conference. Friday through Sunday, the Radnor Model United Nations Club participated in their first all-virtual conference held by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. 2019 Radnor alum and former Radmon officer Patrick Caper served as the Secretary General of the conference, which is the highest leadership position. And RHS did great. 12 students won committee awards, and we should all have a lot of school pride because Radmon won the best large delegation overall. Finally, entering the second and final semester of their time at RHS, the seniors are trying to make the most of their circumstances. Unfortunately, the senior bonfire planned for earlier this month was rescheduled for March due to the inclement weather. Yesterday, though, was a special day for the seniors. Both cohort A and B for the other 3 grades stayed home for synchronous learning, while every senior who wanted to went to school on one day. Yesterday allowed the seniors to spend time with all of their friends and experience one more normal day as their time at RHS comes to an end. In addition, parents of 2021 seniors have begun to assemble the annual memory wall. The walls of pictures bring back fond memories of students' time here at Radnor. The wall usually isn't displayed until prom, but in this year of uncertainty, seniors will get to enjoy it as it is constructed over the next few months. With the third marking period beginning earlier this month, students are excited to push through the second half of this crazy year. It feels like there was snow on the ground this entire month, and while I'm certainly looking forward to some warm weather, students have appreciated a few exciting traditional snow days. And it's hard to believe next time we meet it's going to be almost spring break. As always, Austin and I have enjoyed being here and look forward to the next meeting. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Sammy. Mr. Batchel, you have your superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sammy and Austin. I didn't realize we had some snow days already this year, Sammy and Austin. I hadn't noticed too many. Yes, it has been quite a winter for all of us, and I think we're all ready to see spring and to get through the rest of this what we have left, and hopefully we hope that we won't have additional snow days. I want to thank our everybody for their patience dealing with the weather. Including yesterday, which was an additional challenge and a surprise. But I can't thank enough the staff, everybody on staff, and our parents for their cooperation. Wanted to talk tonight in Superintendent's remarks, want to just share some updates and just where we are with things and as we move forward with our decision to move to phase 1 for our elementary program. And then, share, that we are continuing to look at the potential for phase 1 for our secondary program for middle school and high school. And we hope to share information on that very soon. As Sammy mentioned, it was really nice to know and to be able to see that we had a day where all our seniors could be together. Some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is going to give us further opportunity to move forward with our secondary program as well in future days. So we'll be sharing that in the future. So we always each month share where we are with our positive cases for Radnor, what we experience in our school district. So you can see the one bar graph is what we post. Both of these graphs is what we post on our website. We can move to the next slide. We also always have continued to post these charts. These were the charts that were originally given to us to guide us on reopening. And as these charts were given to us as guardrails to guide us, obviously, as we've talked about in the past, there were times that we, though the guardrails suggested we be virtual, we stayed in hybrid. And thankfully, we were able to do that successfully. The nice thing to see with this is that we can see that there is a decline. We are experiencing, here in Radnor, here in the county, what we're seeing going on in the country. We needed to go down further, but we're glad to see that this trend exists both with our positivity and our incidence. We go on to the next slide. And our phase 1 timeline. Everybody has seen this now. This is something we've talked about, and it is a well thought out, measured plan. It is something that we have taken our time in planning. But a theme that you're going to hear me say tonight, that you've heard me say before, is we've always said we need to be ready to move back to phase 3 at any time, and we continue to be ready to do that. And we need to be just as ready to move to phase 1. And thankfully, that preparation, that the time is right. And I think many things are, falling into place for our plan to continue to move forward for the move to phase 1. We go to the next slide. So our plan to move to phase 1, it has involved everyone on our staff. There is not an employee in the district that hasn't been a critical part of our being in hybrid and have been a critical part in our planning to move to phase 1. So I don't want to get myself in trouble listing groups, but I can't thank enough all departments, all parts of our district, all segments of support staff that have worked so hard to help us plan to get to phase 1. If it wasn't for the collaboration, with our teachers, the collaboration with our cafeteria, with our transportation, with our paraprofessionals, with our custodials, with our secretaries, with our administrators, all the work that they have been doing, our operations department, the snow days on top of all this planning and things that have to be put together. Everyone has had to come together to get phase 1 ready, and for us to be at a point that this week we welcome our K-2 students back full-time on Thursday and 3, 4, 5 on Monday. You can see on this slide, we share some of those milestones, some of those faculty meetings that we had, some of the opportunities we've had for feedback. One of the things I was really impressed with the administration and our teachers, we set up a document, several weeks or a month ago where, all of our staff could post any questions they had about phase 1. And that produced a 9-page FAQ for our staff on, answering those questions and moving forward. We also had, you can see on this, the Radnor Township, I got to move my tiles, Radnor Township Elementary Phase 1 plan that we had for our parents that helped inform our parents with the commitment forms. We continued to have many meetings, and I thank the school board for their time invested as well in setting up times to meet with our teachers to continue to discuss how we as a community come together, how we as a community move together to phase 1. And yes, it's been challenging. This is hard. There are certainly a lot of concerns. I don't know anyone that isn't concerned, but it's really through the collaboration of our whole community that we're able to move forward. So I want to just take a moment to thank everyone for that. and thank our students and parents. Their patience, their feedback through the surveys has really helped to guide us as well. And I'll talk a little bit about at the end what we need to continue to still do as a community, and that's going to be really important. So I want to finish up by talking about that as at the end. If we can move to the next slide. Again, these are those charts that we look at monthly, and I put them back on just to highlight that, one of the things that we've been excited to see is the last 4 weeks, on that bar graph, our positive cases that we're experiencing is much like what we experienced in October. So we're happy to see the trend of what we've seen within our school district right now. And again, we're happy to see this trend also when we look at the positivity and the incidents, going forward. Go to the next slide. So we did receive, and I shared with the community on Sunday, I'm losing track of days now, I think it was Sunday. Sunday I shared, late Friday at about 5 o'clock, superintendents in Delaware and Chester County received a letter from the Chester County Health Department. That letter outlined some of the changes that are coming to the guidance. We've talked about this many times before, that the guidance, I think it's probably through like a 7th or 8th version now of the guidance. The guidance continues to evolve and change as all of us learn more about not only the virus and the spread, but all of us learn more about what we can do through our experiences. We noted here in that letter some of the information that the health department has shared with us, that the importance of layered mitigation measures and that the importance of those layered mitigation and how those have been successful in supporting schools to increasing to more in-person learning. One of the things that we're excited about is that we have now in place testing for our staff, weekly voluntary testing for our staff, and we are now moving forward to look to do that with our students as well. So there'll be more information coming forward as we have opportunities to use that opportunity to test our students as well. So we're continuing to, even as we're bringing more kids back, we're continuing to layer that mitigation, and we're continuing to make sure that the mitigation we have, that we are recommitting and shoring up and making sure that it is working as we anticipated throughout our entire district. The next slide, please. So in the letter, they shared with us some guardrails. And again, as part of their recommendation and guidance, they shared with guardrails for districts. And again, this is guardrails for districts that, this is serving Chester and Delaware County. It's serving districts that some districts haven't even been open for a single day of in-person learning so far this year. Other districts like ours has been open in hybrid. So this guidance was given for all of us to help us guide us as we move forward, and gives the opportunity for districts to be thoughtful about going below 6 feet, that question of distancing we've looked at. So this was the guidance they've provided us moving forward, which has been helpful for us. If we go to the next slide. The CHOP Policy Lab, which we've been following closely, and one of the things we've talked about at length in all these meetings is that we look at so much guidance. I think back in the spring, I presented at a board meeting and I shared with the community. I said I felt like I was as good as the last article I read. And depending what that last article I read, really influenced, my thinking back in the spring. We have come so far as educators. We've come so far as a public health community. We have come so far as a country with what we know about what we can and can't do, or what would work well, what has worked well. And really that guidance, that idea of what we're learning from comprehensive approach, from looking at a lot of different information, weighing all that different information, and also weighing what others have done. One of the things we shared in our move to phase 1 and our ability to do it was that we're willing to learn from the districts that are doing it well, whether it's districts, around us, whether it is school districts, or private schools near us or outside us. We're willing to look at districts that have been doing it well and have been doing it below 6 feet, and how could we learn from them? And the CHOP Policy Lab updated their guidance on February 17th as well, and even talked about that even some of these guardrails that we've all been trying to use and all this guidance, and again, there's so many different places we can look for the guidance. we have to look at it and view it as more relative than absolute. And that again, the emphasis on a multi-layered school safety plans, and that for each district, it's different in their ability to how far they can go. So for Radnor, we're very pleased with the extensiveness of our program to make sure we can move our program forward safely for all our students and all of our staff. Go to the next slide. That guidance also from the Child Policy Lab, talks about again, the idea of and cautions us in looking at all this guidance to be careful how we look at absolute, any kind of absolute requirements, and instead looking at a comprehensive approach and also looking at your experience. And that is something that has strongly influenced us in Radnor. Our experience has given us the confidence and the ability and the collaboration with our teachers and all of our support staff has given us this ability to move forward. We go to the next slide. So phase 1, full day in person, as everybody's aware, K-2 is beginning Thursday. The commitment forms, I want to thank the community for the quick turnaround on commitment forms. I believe we're at, right now, roughly out of the net change of families or students leaving hybrid, those who were, coming to in-person learning at the elementary versus going to cyber, it's about 40 net gain plus of students coming in for in-person learning. So our elementary program has now scheduled and prepared for that, and it is ready to move forward, starting Thursday. So I want to thank our parents for all of the feedback that they were able to provide us, not only, with the factual information of your commitment, but also additional feedback you provided us in those commitment forms as well. Move to the next slide. And then the phase 1 plan. The logistics have been unbelievable. And we've had, this is probably now our 3rd start to the school year. We had a start to the school year at the start, and as much as all of us were disappointed to have it virtually, we had that start. And then we quickly, after 2 weeks, made plans and moved quickly into our hybrid program, and we had another start to the school year with the hybrid. In a way, this is another start, bringing kids back in full. As Austin talked about, you can forget almost, that when you're in cohorts, that there's another group of students out there, and the snow days, at least the positive to the virtual snow days, when we didn't just have a snow days, was students at every level got to see their entire class together. This is another start for us. This is another opportunity to bring back, an entire class and bring the kids in the elementary level back for full days. You can see the logistics and safety. This is just a small picture of the list of many of the things that have been going on. And again, the level of detail by so many in the district and our administrative team has been truly incredible. So I just want to thank them for all that they're putting together and doing. Move to the next slide. And then we've seen these slides as well, our phase 1 plan, what has been our focus for our phase 1 plan, and then the implementation timeline. And as you're aware, tomorrow is our asynchronous day for just the elementary, is the asynchronous day. And then you can see as we move to K2, we continue with the hybrid in 3, 4, and 5 on Thursday and Friday. And then on Monday, we will move to full in-person for grades 3, 4, 5 for the elementary starting Monday. And we continue, especially now with this new guidance from the health department, which further, I think, gives us, confidence. It gives us the ability to look at our secondary program and look at what is the proper timing now for our secondary program as well. So move to the next slide. And I mentioned before, I wanted to end with this. We need to continue to be focused and vigilant with our masking and screening. We need to be very careful that as there is excitement, obviously, excitement in the elementary level, that all of us continue to double down with our masking and screening and our social distancing. We are still aiming for 6-foot distance to the maximum extent possible in all the areas we can do that. We still need to be committed to hygiene. We need to be committed to all those protocols and the time we're taking to wash our hands. Our students have been amazing in the way they've adapted to the mitigation protocols. And even though they're now going to be sitting with their other classmates, we still need to make sure that we are just as committed, and all of us as a staff need to be committed. Every one of us, there isn't anyone who wants things to go back to normal. And we need to make sure that as we bring more kids in, we don't get too comfortable. We don't get too excited about it because we're going to be excited to see a class of students. That we need to make sure we still commit to these things. And we know it's hard. We know it's still not school the way the kids would want it. It's not the school the way we would want it. But what we've seen through hybrid is that we can make it work. And that the students can have a valuable, not only education, but they can have interactions, and that we can do this successfully. So we need our community to continue to work with us. I implore everyone, please continue outside of school, continue to keep Radnor numbers low, continue to keep that Radnor incidence number as low as we can keep it, because that is what will help us moving forward as a school district, to keep our schools open for full in-person learning. And we will be prepared. We may have to move back to phase 3. I know no one wants to hear that. I've always said we need to be ready to move to any one of the phases at any time. And we are also willing that if there's something that we need to adjust, if there's something that we learn or something that takes place that we need to adjust, we will make those adjustments, or we will move back to something if need be. But our eyes are focused on moving forward and addressing anything that we can do to make this as successful as possible. And then the next slide, I think, is just, I wanted to thank donors. So I'm going to open it up in a moment for board members for comments and any questions in a moment. So before I do, let me just conclude my superintendent's remarks, and then I'll open it up for board comments and questions. We can share the screen, but just want to thank our donors for this month, and PTO. For their donation for flexible seating. Gosh, if there's any year that we've needed flexible seating. So thank you so much for your donation and support of our schools. And then my last slide, I do have a picture of the entire school board with just our focus on everything going on. Historically, January is Board Appreciation Month, and we didn't do anything in January. The board had even said to me, please, we just have too much going on. Let's stay focused on what we're doing. So I overruled them for this month and said, I would like to recognize them. So we will later in recognitions. I want to recognize the board. This is not what anyone has signed up for this year. I think I added up the meetings, and I think this board has, between just the summer alone and all the special meetings and into the fall, you've served what is probably equal to 2 or 3 years of a term on a school board. And your service, your volunteer service to this school board and to this community and through this has truly been incredible. So we will take a moment tonight in the recognitions to recognize and thank all of you. And we might actually have a little fun with it throughout this whole ordeal. It's hard to take times to laugh and remember we're here for the kids. So we wanted to do something tonight to remind us about that the students are our focus. So during the recognition, I will go back to the board, or to the recognition section of the agenda. I'll go back to the board recognition, but I wanted to take a moment to open it up to the school board just for any questions or comments on just where we are with phase 1.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelor. Ms. Solomon.
Yeah, thank you for giving us an opportunity just to weigh in on all of this. I appreciate that. I'm trying to think through how much I want to say, and I just think the community needs to know, and I'd like RTEA to know, that this board has spent hundreds of hours talking about, in the last year, how to deliver education, safely and the best way we could in Radnor. And I want to say that for me, I'm incredibly, I'll use the word sympathetic to the position of the teachers at this point in time. And I want to explain that. I feel like throughout the pandemic, I think the US did a pretty poor job at handling the pandemic. We have the worst outcome in the world, of countries in the world. I felt up until about September that half the population, wouldn't wear masks, was was continuing the spread around the country, and how frustrating that was. And then we had a plan in February to roll out vaccines to our teachers. And then that was thwarted because they decided to reorganize Group 1A and shove all kinds of people ahead of teachers, which honestly is not a policy that, you know, is pro education and pro students. So, you know, I just feel like it, and so I'm just saying this because this is more for the community. I don't think we should have teachers left holding the bag because honestly, the government has failed, and the government is us. We are, you know, the community. We have failed on COVID, and we should not leave teachers holding the bag, you know, by numerous failures of not really handling this well. So, you know, having said that, I want to say I see all different sides of this issue. I really do. I see, you know, the need to get kids in school. I see why teachers are terrified. You know, I can understand where everybody's coming from on this. And I think we should proceed with this. I want there to be full disclosure that, you know, I have a level of discomfort, and it has to do with my level of risk that I'm willing to take, and that is different for different people. I would prefer to be more on the cautious side. And that doesn't mean everybody has to see it that way, and they clearly don't. And so I just want to say, you know, that, look, this is a really tough situation we're in. And so I want to just have full disclosure and full honesty. You know, we wrestled with this, and we do not all agree, you know, but we're trying to, again, do the best. I think the community knows that we're really trying to do the best for everyone involved. And so I'm going to leave my comments at that. Thank you for giving us a chance to weigh in on this.
Thank you, Lydia. Is there anybody else who had any questions or comments? Nancy, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for making this happen, of having elementary get back full time. And as I've been saying all along, you know, I think that we shouldn't stop there. I think our secondary students are really struggling. And I think that, you know, I absolutely agree with what Lydia has said. At the same time, there are a number of people who have to keep work, you know, have had to work. And I think that as a district, we have offered and continue to add multiple mitigation efforts to make everyone safe. That said, you know, I think that we don't have the numbers yet for our secondary students. And, you know, it's almost like we're gambling and not knowing what the long-term effects or consequences are going to be with them not attending school full time. So again, my position, as I've been pretty consistent all along, is just to continue to find opportunities to get them back for those that choose, while also having an option for those that want to do virtual. But thank you all for all the work that you've done. It's wonderful to see this happen at the end of the week. And, you know, thank you teachers and staff and everyone. It truly, truly doesn't, my words cannot express. So thank you.
Bradley, go ahead.
Mr. Batchel, I'll put it in terms of a question mostly. It's a question I asked in September, and a question I asked again in January when you presented a plan for phase 1 for elementary only, but we didn't have dates yet. You know, what needs to happen between now and an announcement with when you feel like it'd be comfortable, when you feel like the school could move forward with the secondary program shifting to phase 1? I know for elementary, I think your answer in January was you wanted to finish the consultation with the health department to see if they had feedback on the plan. You wanted to see if they issued their updated guidance. And I guess as part of my question, I also was asking, was there anything else you need from this board in your planning to move forward with that plan. So I think, I know a lot of people in the community have been emailing us asking, what will it take to move to phase one for the middle school and the high school too. So I'm sure they would appreciate an update, a little more information on, what are your expectations and what does it look like you're planning moving forward?
Sure. No, that's a fair question. And the right now, the guidance was a piece that, we felt very good moving forward, understanding that guidance would be coming. Now the guidance is out. So that obviously, helps with our perspective and helps us moving forward. There are logistics that are unique to the middle school, and there are logistics that are unique to the high school. We are still looking at some of the survey results. We're still looking at the logistics of what we need to do to handle lunches. The new guidance is silent on lunches, but we've been focused on trying to keep kids at 6 feet. It has required us to purchase extra desks. Those extra desks we've purchased. We did that at the elementary level. We had to purchase a lot of extra desks. We have to do that at the middle school and high school. So those are due in almost any day now. We're waiting for those. The snowstorm, believe it or not, did not help our desk delivery, in the last week or so, those storms. So we want to work with our teachers and continue to work with our teachers at both the middle school and high school level on developing those plans. And then we would hope to make an announcement on that date soon. And the only reason I'm being non-committal with it is because we are focused. We are focused on doing this. We are focused on, especially now, it was Friday night, seeing the additional guidance. We're seeing again, we weigh all the factors of where the community spread. The high school, we're dealing with older kids versus, what we're dealing in phase one at the elementary with younger kids, and what we know the differences are, with younger students versus older students. So we're trying to take all of those pieces into consideration. So I would hope that we can make an announcement, within a week or at the latest 2 weeks, but we could be making an announcement that would set a date, for when we can bring in our middle school and high school students. And really we would try to do that as soon as we can. So we'll I think it's the logistics of the last few pieces we want to do. We want to make sure we do it well. We have a lot of focus right now on K2 on Thursday. We have a lot of focus on Monday on K5. Operationally, I think we're going to be able to, once we get Thursday moving and then Monday moving, I think we're going to be in a better place as a district to look at, okay, how is and is there any takeaways that we want to learn from that as well, even though they're very different, really very different. And then we should be able to hopefully make that announcement soon on what's happening at the secondary level. But we are, and I think our community knows it, and I think the sign of what we're doing at the elementary, and I hope the board is aware of that too. We are committed to looking at, doing that at the right time and doing it as soon as we can.
Thank you. And, and I understand that it's challenging. I think out of any of the 9 board members, I may have talked a lot about some of the differences in the elementary program and the secondary program and the special challenges that there are in the secondary program with differences in how students are cohorted and, mixing in the hallways and all of that. But, I just want to highlight, I trust you to be thoughtful about it. I think that's worth saying. I think you were thoughtful about the phase 1 plan for elementary, and I trust you to be thoughtful about the phase 1 plan for secondary. This board made a very consequential vote in September to authorize the superintendent to have discretion on the timeline for moving among the phases. And, I think that puts a lot of pressure on, but I think it also shows a vote of confidence. And, there's a lot behind that. And I think it is something not a lot of other districts have done, but, you still have my confidence moving forward, Mr. Batchelor.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Dr. Babson, Andrew.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think Ken's right that our administrators tasked with figuring out the logistics of this situation deserve a huge lot of praise, because pulling this off is a huge challenge, and there are going to be ongoing tweaks that are going to have to be made. So let's tip our cap to them. I have been pretty consistent all along. I'm not really going to change much in terms of my input tonight. But in talking with a lot of experts, people that know a lot more about this than me, one clear takeaway is that the science on this is not settled, and sometimes you have to make the best decision that you can with not that much information. So then you're left with your your tolerance of risk, and your moral outlook, and a number of factors. So I said it back in July. I said, we'll probably have a vaccine in January, February. Here we are. And so that was the basis of my position, that we should just sort of wait till we're out of the tunnel. We can see light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like we're at the end of the tunnel now. So why we're rushing to open now, when, I mean, we're almost out of the tunnel, and endangering the safety and I think the peace of mind of our teachers, in my opinion, needlessly. So I disagree with it. One other quick point is that looking at the guidance, the rubrics that Jean Kasner shared with us, actually our incidence rate is in the very high. It's above 100. It's 116, I believe, in Radnor. But we're actually low in terms of test positivity. So it's a mixed bag. So in this situation, it's definitely not a slam dunk. There are people that are arguing about this at the CDC of no less places. So so I think that I just want to say that I strongly disagree with going forward with this. But as Mr. Moore said, and I dissented on part of the vote, to turn this over to the discretion of the administration. And so here we are. So we just have to hope for the best. As Mr. Batchelor said, let's all get behind adherence to the protocols. I think our community has been doing an excellent job. Well, our school community has been doing an excellent job at that, and let's hope for the best. One final point, I know I'm taking up a lot of time here, but my final point is that we got a note, we've gotten several notes from people saying, why aren't we meeting in person? And I think that's a very good point. It's a good question. Why aren't we meeting in person? And, there's some logistical challenges to it, but where there's a will, there's a way, in my opinion. There are spaces in our district that we could use to maintain distance, et cetera. So perhaps it's something that we'll discuss, but I just thought that I would bring up that point too. Thanks.
Yeah, Dr. Babson, thank you. And your question is a good question about, why aren't we meeting in person? We are still, under the governor's order for capacity. So if we wanted to use the normal room with the township building that we've used for board meetings, that is fully equipped for us to be able to use, we would not be able to fit even all of the, administrators, all of the board, and then let alone try to deal with public comment. We could certainly put some resources to look into our auditorium, and we thought about that, and put board members at 6 feet along the auditorium and have one camera in the back on 9 members. So instead of seeing my face in my square right now, you would see just one picture and be very pixelated. It'd be one camera way back of 9 people on a stage. So picture whenever your kids are, in a show and there's one camera that films it from the back. That would be how our board meetings would be handled. And then we still wouldn't be able to allow public comment to come into the auditorium because we would have capacity issues with public comment. And then so we would have to then figure out technology on how to do that. We as administrative, and this is on me, not on the school board, so I'm glad you brought this up. This is on me. I made a focus that all of our energy and all of our time is being spent on making sure that our teachers have every support and everything that they need from a technology standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and making sure that all of our support staff are supporting that classroom instruction. And we've seen the value. We certainly saw it when we went into hybrid of kids coming into the classroom. We see the value of having kids in the classroom. And honestly, that I haven't been willing to devote the time, and all due respect to the school board, devote the time and resources to put together a meeting where we could be in person, where we still would then have to do public comment virtually. And honestly, I actually think from looking at boards that have tried to do it in person, where they have 3 or 4 people and still they're only reading public comment, we're allowing public comment to come in person now through Zoom, and then everybody is masked. It's really not efficient. So I think we also have to look at, and this is one of the things that we're learning through this time period. Is it possible that having, does instruction make sense over Zoom day in and day out? No, I think we're learning that in-person model really makes a difference, a huge difference. That we are learning and being reminded the importance of a teacher and the importance that teacher makes in the classroom with the kids.
I think that's debatable.
Okay, well, that may be debatable. Okay, but that might be debatable. I'll open that up to you, sure. But I think we are learning that I am being reinforced, in my opinion, that importance of that individual teacher. But I think we're also maybe learning that board meetings and boards maybe can meet over Zoom, and that Zoom might be an efficient way sometimes for us to hold meetings. But we can certainly, as a board, look at, trying to move to in-person in the future. I'm not sure it would make sense because I don't know that we would have as clear a meeting. I mean, the picturing 9 people and 1 camera behind versus all of our faces here. But we can certainly administratively start to look at that. But we haven't, just because we've been so focused on our resources and time, making sure that our classroom instructional protocols. So that's why we haven't gone down that road.
Sure. Let me just mention one sentence that I speak for parents that have gone for the online option. And, of course, it's not ideal. It's a pandemic. But we've been super happy as a group overall. And that's a tip of the hat again to Sean and Dan for their administrative work and getting that going. And of course, our teachers are amazing teachers. So wonderful education is happening online in these really tough times. So I just need to say that.
No, thank you. I would agree. That's one of the things we found out from our surveys, that our families that chose our virtual program, have been pleased, especially at I would say across the board, but that was one of the feedbacks that we have found. So thank you for that, Dr. Babson.
You got it.
I don't know if there's any other questions. Liz, why don't you jump in?
I'll just quickly, I thank you for all the work, and I do support this move. And from my perspective, I don't feel like anything is being rushed here. I feel like there's been meticulous planning and the layered mitigation and the recent introduction of the testing. I think that's a really positive as we lessen the distancing a little bit. And I also think it's important to keep that our teachers are going to maintain 6 feet away from the students as best they can for the majority of the time. And then, Ken, I really appreciate that you giving a little context of timing moving to secondary, because I really, I guess I'll echo what Nancy said in terms of, I think we've heard from a lot of community members that there's, that the hybrid situation for many students or for some, is not working. And that, I think the move we're making, I am confident that you're going to take the steps and understand the importance of bringing our kids back if we can safely. And I would also, as Mr. Moore said, I have a vote of confidence in you doing this safely for all our community.
Thank you.
Jeff or Sarah, Amy? No?
I'll just say very quickly, nothing new. I completely support this, and I really just want to thank everyone and echo the fact that when we talk about public health, that again, behavioral health has to play a huge role in the decision making. And what we're hearing, I think, loud and clear from many in the community, not all, but many, is that our high school kids, middle school too, they're suffering emotionally in many ways. And I know that's such an important factor in how you're planning moving forward with all public safety measures and extra mitigation measures in place as well. But the mental and social emotional well-being of our kids is as important as, in my opinion, as their physical health, and it's all important. And let's never lose sight of that. I know we on the board don't lose sight of that. And you as administrators and our teachers care deeply about our kids. And let's not, and that's why I think it's not a rush as well, in that it's past time, in my opinion, to do it right. And I'm really happy to see that the seniors got that opportunity yesterday, and there'll be more opportunities hopefully in the future as well. They deserve it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. And just to say that we recognize every day matters. And that was part of the, what led us to our decision 2 weeks ago, to announce our plans for the elementary, because every day matters. And we recognize that there is, that every moment that we haven't made an announcement is another day that we're not bringing kids in. And we feel that and know that every day. And especially, and I will say that there are pressures and struggles that are unique to every level for our students, but we are well aware of what's been going on at our high school level. And those concerns have been different from just in its pure attendance between our high school and middle school. And it's been something that high schools are seeing across our country, across our region. And we're looking at that closely, and we're looking at, how quickly can we make these decisions? So no, I thank you.
Amy, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, just a slightly different angle to all of this. I was on a call today, and it was a disheartening reminder that, we are very, very fortunate here in our district, as are many of our, some of the districts around us. And for those who have the energy to advocate with us, let's not forget that there are students in districts not too far away from where we are who have not been able to get into a building since the beginning of March. And no amount of stimulus money in the world helps them buy the real estate and the extra staff and all of those things that they need to be able to get back into the buildings. So while we are very fortunate here, and I echo many of the sentiments across the board here of what people have said, I just wanted to put out there a reminder that part of what we do as school board members is fight for our neighbors too. And if anybody out in the community wants to join us, please feel free, because ideally every child would be able to have the opportunity to get back in the buildings as our children are fortunate enough to be able to do. And that's just not possible. Right now right in Delaware County, there are some districts that are still struggling to even establish hybrid. And they've got just super crowded classrooms, and you can't buy real estate and they can't figure it out how to get in. So I just wanted to point that out, that is something that we all can collectively do as a community together, is try to help our neighbors along as well, and fight for them and get the funding that they need to be able to have the opportunities that our children are fortunate enough to have.
All righty. Well, I do want to just, again, thank you. I really do appreciate, I know our board does not agree uniformly on this decision, but I really appreciate the respectful conversation. And look, we all want what's best for kids. I mean, we all want what's best for kids. And, some of us are weighing the information and the data differently. And, none of us is alone in our respective opinions. I do fully support Ken's decision. I want to be really clear about that. Being in leadership, Ken and I have had many, 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 many conversations about this, and I'm very well aware of the heavy lift that Ken has done to bring us to this point, and I'm profoundly grateful to him. I believe in the protocols in a way that having, a nursing background, it gives me just a different practical measure of belief in universal precautions. And I think that has made a big difference in our ability so far. And we are asking an awful lot of our teachers, and we have asked an awful lot of our students. I mean, the world has asked, an awful lot of students this year, to learn remotely or to learn asynchronously or to learn on some days and to not be in a class I mean, what kids have been asked to do is beyond words. And parents, you know, I am crystal clear. I was never going to homeschool my children. I am crystal clear that that was not a skill that I would have, a task I would have chosen. And, you know, we have lots of people in our community and in our country who are doing this, and balancing their jobs and their other commitments. And we've asked a lot of everybody, and we need to continue to ask a lot of everybody because, you know, Ken alluded to this in his presentation. One of the things, in answer to Mr. Moore's question about what might it take to get to phase 2 for the secondary, phase 1 for the secondary, is, you know, the lower our community numbers are and the lower our positivity is, the better it is for everybody. And so, you know, we'll continue to ask that and believe in it and be appreciative of everybody who's being a part of this really unprecedented time. So, Ken, we look forward to hearing, I'm sure we'll hear on Sunday, a little update in the Radnor Weekly Reader of how Thursday and Friday went. And I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's move right into our recognitions then. We have first up, item 5.1, which is the Radnor High School senior earns High Merit Award in the National Art Contest. Dr. Babson, you were going to do this recognition?
Yep, I just need to bring it up.
Sure.
Okay. I think I've got it. Yeah. Okay, so this is for Radnor High School senior Ben Magarian, and he earned a High Merit Award in the December CelebratingArt.com contest. Ben's mixed media painting Dawn depicts horror in the city of Baku, Azerbaijan. The piece was inspired by Ben's Armenian heritage and ancestry. As one of the top 35% of entries in his division, grades 10 through 12, nationally, Dawn will be published in a book of top entries. Ben is currently enrolled in Eric Barrett's AP Art and Design class. The superintendent, along with the school board and the entire Radnor community, congratulates Ben, his parents, and his teachers on this outstanding accomplishment.
That's great. Mr. Batchelor, do you happen to know if his art is on the website anywhere posted?
I don't know. Maybe Mr. Barrett or Ben could let us know. And just welcome, Ben. Congratulations. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight, and Mr. Barrett as well.
Yes, Mr. Barrett is an outstanding art teacher. I really would not have been able to do without him. He's just a phenomenal teacher. The best I've ever had.
That's great.
That's wonderful. Is there somewhere we could see the piece, Ben? Is it posted on our website?
Should be. It was in the Radnor Reader.
That's right.
Oh, good. Okay, great. I will look through my previous Radnor readers. Well, thank you for being with us tonight.
Congratulations again, Ben and Mr. Barrett.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Babson. Now we're going to move into item 5.2. The Radnor Middle School 8th graders earned 3 awards in the Philadelphia Future City competition. Ms. Monahan, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay, thank you. There are quite a number of students. I don't know if they're all going to be let on, but I will start reading the recognition. So Radnor Middle School students in the 8th grade integrated program Gateways recently earned 3 awards in the 2021 Philadelphia Future City competition: Innovative Environmental Management, Use of Computer Technology, and First Sprinkler Water Delivery. The RMS team earned the awards for their solution to this year's Living on the Moon theme. They presented their future lunar city called Eclipsia to a group of judges via Zoom and provided examples of how their city uses moon resources to keep citizens safe and healthy. The mission of the Future City competition is to provide a fun and exciting educational engineering program for middle school students that combines a stimulating engineering challenge with a hands-on application to present their vision of a city of the future. The RMS Gateways program is co-taught by RMS teachers Darcy DiGiacomo and Stephen Smolin. The students in the 2020-2021 program are, and I am going to read off each of your names. And if you are on, if you can give a little wave so we can see who you are, that would be wonderful. And I hope I do not butcher anyone's names. And I'm going to thank a friend of mine who helped me out with some pronunciation before this meeting. So here we go. Savannah Abrams, Pocky Agarwal, Pearson Bruns, Ivy Chackelson, Olivia Cohen-Frew, Faze Duraga, Isaac Denham, Wayne Fontaine, Adeline Frank, Tosh Freeman, Dimitri Fritz, Austin Gibbons, Rafaela Goncalves, Nadia Horchler, Andrew Hugh, Mateo Kai, Devin Karadagli, Daphne Kazansi, Safa Coulsum, Ava Lista, Jack Loreen, Daisy Madden, Ben Mannering, Isabel Miriam, Eric Mortensen, Charles Nevins, Mark Passless, Lillian Riley, Anais Rios, Miranda Scrutchings, Casey Shields, Mason Shai, Dylan Simon, Mira Singh, Kristen Spikerman, Sophie Takna, Aaron Wang, Juwan Yu, and David Yuan. Congratulations to all of those students on this wonderful recognition. The superintendent, along with the school board and the entire Radnor community, congratulates these students, their parents, and teachers on this outstanding accomplishment.
That's great. Mr. Batchel, we'll be sending them their certificates, I'm sure, correct?
Correct. Yep. We're sending them certificates and thank you, Darcy and Stephen, teachers. Thank you for joining us, and all the kids. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. And congratulations. Really exciting. And I've got a gift for the school board later. I shouldn't share it now, but it is and it's fitting because it actually is going to the middle school library. And you could have used this. And the gift we're giving to the school board tonight is how we got to the moon. Oh, I got to turn off my screen sharing. You can't see it, but would have been nice probably if we had that already for you guys. I can't change my screen back up, but anyways, it's a book that'll be in your library soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you all to all the students for being here tonight. All righty, Mr. Batchelor, we're moving on to item 5.3, which was originally scheduled for the January 26th regular business meeting in recognition of the Radnor Township School Board.
Yeah, so we wanted to just take a moment tonight, that as I mentioned in the beginning, January is always a month to honor school boards, honor you for your volunteer service, for all the hours and all that you have done and your commitment to our community. So as I mentioned, we do have a donation on your behalf to each of our libraries. So this is the one that's going to go into the middle school. It's called How We Got to the Moon. We're donating a book on behalf of this entire school board. We just to start the rumors, to keep the rumors going, that our project at the high school is all about creating a Quidditch field. We have 3 Quidditch through the ages books that'll be going to our 3 elementary buildings, in the name of all the board members. And then to our high school, we have a book, Together is Better, will be the donation on behalf of the board. And honestly, I just opened it up and I just want to share Together is Better, 3 pages from this book. And it says, innovators are the ones whose dreams are clearer than the reality that tells them they're crazy. The best way to find out if something will work is to do it. Always plan for the fact that no plan ever goes according to plan. And the final one that I just wanted to read in this sequence, if the challenge we face doesn't scare us, then it's probably not that important. So I thought it was pretty appropriate with everything else we were talking about earlier in our superintendent's remarks and our move to phase 1. So I wish I had opened it sooner. I would have used some of this earlier, but wanted to donate those books. Thank the board members. And yes, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of things on all of our plates and we do have a busy agenda, but we did want to take just a moment. I'm not going to read the whole resolution thanking, but we do have a resolution. So thank you, board, for all you do. But our communications department, as well as some of our administrators working with our kids, just wanted to put together something to thank our board. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Petiti to cue up the video. Mr. Petiti, I think is it just my computer? The volume's not working?
I can't hear it either, Mr. Batchelor.
Yeah, no, I can't hear it either.
I don't think that's part of the skit.
I thought it was part of the joke.
Leon?
Give it like 5 seconds, please.
And we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our monthly school board meeting. We just met for an executive session to discuss the color of the gym mats and how much it would truck and chuck. Now, moving on to tonight's superintendent remarks.
No remarks tonight. We've got a busy agenda to get through.
I'm still having trouble downloading the agenda, by the way.
It's only 108 pages with 86 pages of attachments. Come on.
There's a couple tablets too, and I mean tablets, like the kind made of stone.
Yeah, we're really proud of those. I etched them myself.
Check with the district technology, please. In the meantime, we'll make sure that the materials are delivered to your home in big stacks to make it difficult for you to pull into your driveway.
Cool. I love obstacle courses.
How about a public comment? How many are we looking at tonight?
By my last count, Madam President, 2,386, give or take.
Oh, so we're a little low this month.
Are they all emails or did some people want to zoom in? And aren't we also letting people arrange for singing telegrams and carrier pigeons to the admin building?
As chair of the facilities committee, I distinctly remember our dismissal of the carrier pigeon idea. The admin building needs enough cleanup as it is.
All right, let's wait on public comment until then. It should only take 6 days or so if we're lucky. By the time we're done, we'll be able to immediately begin next month's committee meetings.
In that case, Madam President, can I take something off the consent agenda?
We haven't yet reached that part of our meeting. However, why not? We have 53 different consent agenda items, and frankly, I'm just curious which one you take exception to. By a show of hands, how many of us take exception to something tonight?
Yeah, but I get to go first.
Please be quick, but also feel free to make your point thoroughly, or maybe move on entirely, whatever you think is best.
I move on entirely.
I second that motion.
Order! Mr. Jenkins has the floor, or the screen. Just go. Well said, Mr. Jenkins. So as I understand it, you're okay with that consent agenda item passing, but wanting to make sure your position was heard.
Couldn't have said it any better myself.
My goodness, there's lots of stuff for us to do in this agenda.
Can we just stop here for a moment and acknowledge the elephant in the Zoom? No, not you. We're talking about the potential mascot in the next meeting.
I mean, the fact that we, during the normal year, as elected volunteers, are charged with managing the school district's budget, making the decisions about hiring and curriculum, analyzing and authorizing repair and renovation needs on our building, setting the policies of how our schools operate, and so many other important things on behalf of thousands of students and families. Add to this usual amount of work the task of trying to steer a school system through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic where brand new ways to learn had to be devised and implemented and are always changing. In new and unusual protocols had to be developed and put in place for the safety of all staff and students. They're always changing. And countless other issues had to be addressed and continue to require our focus, time, and energy. Absolutely, Ms. President. In the agenda item tonight under recognitions, we are honoring you all in celebration of School Board Appreciation Month.
Oh, in that case, I move we break character.
I second that motion.
I can't believe how much our board members do for us.
I know. It's a lot of work.
Even doing this skit was exhausting.
At least they've been paid for their time and sacrifice.
They're volunteers.
What?
I move for a roll call vote. All those in favor of thanking our board of directors for their time,
Their leadership,
Their service,
their support,
Their commitment,
their contributions,
and their dedication to us. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank
you, School Board.
Meeting adjourned.
Mr. Petiti and the communications department, thank you. I know there's many of you that put that together, and thank you. And the students, thank you. It's just always wonderful to showcase our students, whether it's through the recognition or have an opportunity for that, for them to be involved. And thank you for allowing us to poke a little fun at board members too at the same time through it. And but thank you for all that you do, even through all this tension and all that we're working through. It's good for us to remember the dedication and all that goes into this, and also as a reminder that we're here for the kids, and we're here to make sure that we can give the best education for the Radnor community. So thank you, kids, for being part of it. Thank you, communications department, for putting that together. And thank you all for letting us share it with you tonight. I know you didn't want me to share that, and I know you didn't want to have any of this recognition on the agenda. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Batchelor. That was really a very sweet surprise. Thank you. All righty. Let's see. We're going to move right into our next agenda item, which is public comment. For public comment, the board requires that public participants be residents, taxpayers, or persons with a legal or contractual right to address the board, or persons recognized by the presiding officer as having a special interest such that addressing the board would be appropriate. Eligible participants must be recognized and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address. During virtual meetings, public comment by email must include your name, your street address, and topic. Individual comments should be limited to not more than 4 minutes as per board policy 006. And should you be unable to attend this meeting, you may submit your comments by email to boardcomments@rtsd.org or in writing to Mr. Michael Petiti, Radnor Township School District 135, South Wayne Avenue, Wayne, PA 19087. And as per our new process in November, individuals who are interested in delivering public comment during the meeting may do so by registering to join the meeting on Zoom. While the registration time has passed by now, individuals who wish to join will be asked to provide their name, address, and role in the district. So let's see, Mr. Petiti, I'm going to open it up to public comment.
And so I think we have two, if I'm correct, Ms. Gangle, two individuals who choose to join us tonight to deliver their comments live. So we want to start with them, and then we'll move into me reading the remainder of the comments.
Great, thank you.
Great. So the first that I have here is Ms. Kristen Kearns. And Ms. Kearns, if you could please just remember to state your name and address before delivering your comment. Thank you.
Kristen Kearns.
Welcome, Ms. Kearns. If you could state your address and then begin your comment.
221 Walnut Avenue. My comment is 1 year. 1 year of missing out on proper education. 1 year of virtual, pass-fail, no midterms, no finals, asynchronous, cohort A, B, hybrid model. 1 year of lost memories that kids will never get back. 1 year of getting older. 1 year of getting taller. 1 year of not seeing their peers in school. 1 year of loneliness, sadness, and confusion. 1 year of developing the lack of care, drive, motivation, and respect. 1 year of sitting alone, all alone. 1 year of parents not being able to go and make money for their family. 1 year of no school trips, no sports, proms, graduations, plays, concerts, and school functions. 1 year of watching other students in private and parochial schools get a proper education. 1 year of watching other students in other states receive a proper education. 1 year of watching students in our very own state receive a proper education. 1 lost year, which our children won't ever get back. 1 year of children of public schools being the lost children in education. 1 year which exponentially impacts our children's lives and development. March 13th, 2021 will be 1 year. Don't you think 1 year has been enough for these children? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kearns.
So I learned that our other registrant did not join us to deliver the comment live, so I will be reading that person's. So I'm gonna get started. This is from Lexi McClatchy, 177 Brookleah Road in Bryn Mawr. It is clear that Susan Stern seeks to divide our district and refuses to compromise on any issue presented. It deeply offends me that she likened the behavior of many in our community to the atrocity that occurred in the Capitol building, simply because we sought compromise of the Raider mascot decision. As a Raider graduate and community member, I'm appalled to have someone with her polarizing views leading the school board. Gretchen Garrow, 106 Owens Lane, Wayne. It was inappropriate of Ms. Stern to compare the events of 1/6 to the population of the Radnor community, including a fellow board member who respectfully asked to re-examine the mascot vote. If Ms. Stern was seeking to further divide our community, I think it's fair to say she succeeded. Sarah Whitehead, 113 Lantoga Road, Wayne, class of 2001. To say I was shocked and appalled listening to Susan Stern speak of the events on January 6th at our Capitol and compare them to Radnor citizens who questioned a school board vote is an understatement. At a minimum, Ms. Stern owes Nancy Monahan a public apology for the way she spoke to her. As adults who are elected to be working together to help our school district, Ms. Stern helped further divide and increase the frustration of parents and residents of our town. Thank you for your time. Kate Hart, 520 Meadowbrook Circle, Wayne. Last week, the school board in Oakley, California resigned after making disparaging remarks about the parents in their district. They wrote, quote, "We regret the comments that were made in the meeting. As trustees, we realize it is our responsibility to model the conduct that we expect of our students," unquote. I'm writing because our school board members have failed to model the conduct we expect of our students here in Radnor. The RTSD policy manual, specifically section 1, states that members must model responsible governance and leadership by 1, leading with respect and taking full responsibility for board activity, and 2, working together in a spirit of harmony and cooperation. This board has failed to follow these policies. One board member failed to, quote, work in the spirit of harmony when he publicly stated on social media that, quote, "the GOP equals the party of Trump. There is no daylight, no difference between the Capitol rioters and the mainstream GOP. Any argument to the contrary is weak drivel," unquote. He continues, quote, "There are plenty of scumbags all over the place, but the Republican Party is in the toilet," unquote. This divisive and hate-filled speech leaves no room for compromise. He was elected to represent all the children in Radnor. However, his words indicate that half the people he represents are, quote, "in the toilet." Another member has failed to, quote, "lead with respect" by hatefully and aggressively likening the failure of people to accept a board vote to the failure of people who stormed the Capitol building not accepting the presidential election outcome. She was quick to state she was not likening the people who are questioning the board to the people at the Capitol, but rather their, quote, "dynamic." There's no comparison to be made. The people of Radnor are exercising their First Amendment rights by peacefully writing letters, putting up yard signs, and signing petitions. They're not storming buildings, beating, clubbing, and killing people. For her to draw such a comparison was uncalled for. I know that she regrets her words because she sent an apology to a community member from her personal email account, so it would not be on public record. Isn't this a violation of the PA Sunshine Act? She then asked this person to send her apology to other residents on her behalf. If she was truly repentant for her words, she would publicly apologize and recant her statement, but that has not happened once during the past 4 weeks. To date, over 1,100 Radnor residents have signed a petition asking for her resignation. The remaining board members have failed to model the conduct we expect of our students by failing to take, quote, "full responsibility for board activity." You sat and listened to this member's words and you failed to condemn her for her comparison of Radnor citizens to the Capitol rioters. You chose to remain silent and let the divide that exists in Radnor grow even larger. A citizen reached out to you a week ago regarding the petition and a letter signed by over 250 residents, and not one of you replied. If you disagree with the sentiments expressed in the letter, then go on record. Your silence means you tacitly agree with the divisive sentiments. This hatred has seeped its way into our schools as well. Last week, upon learning of Limbaugh's death, a retired teacher posted on social media, "Good riddance, Rush, you despicable POS," unquote. A first grade West teacher replied, quote, "He was a big bag of bile, and I am glad he is gone," unquote. These teachers who our children look up to celebrated the death of a man that died from cancer. No matter how much I disagree with someone's political views, I would not celebrate their death. What happens to respect and common decency? Our school board is out of touch with the residents of Radnor. There are families that have been out of work for almost a year, businesses that have closed, and children that are desperate to return to the classroom, yet you further divide us with hate speech. This is not the Radnor that reflects the spirit of community, inclusiveness, respect, and diversity. Susan Stern and Andrew Babson must be held accountable for their words, as their abusive leadership does not serve our children. Laura Labaudet, 504 Woodland Court in Wayne. I write to you today to express my deep concern regarding the tone of governance by members of the school board. Unfortunately, today we live in a society that continues to become ever more partisan, bitter, and intentionally personal. It's not hard to understand why many public leaders in our country and in our communities engage in this type of behavior. While there were many opportunities to do good for our country in the last 4 years, our former president failed in one very big way. His method of communication hurt our country tremendously. As president, he engaged in vicious attacks against those he disagreed with politically. Often the attacks were public, personal, condescending, intentionally humiliating, and degrading. He slung nasty nicknames at his foes like a schoolyard bully. It's no wonder why it gave rise to such anger from those who opposed him. We see it in our own town with yard signs posted by our neighbors to remind us that, quote, love trumps hate, and, quote, hate has no home here. President Trump is no longer in office, and he has been banned from most, if not all, social media platforms, yet the hateful rhetoric continues. Frankly, I have a hard time discerning between Trump's behavior and the behavior of those who were most vocal in denouncing it. It seems that those who spent the last 4 years fighting against the vitriol of our former president are now engaging in the very same behavior. Sadly, that includes some members of our school board. One board member posted publicly on a social media account that, quote, the GOP equals the party of Trump. There is no daylight, no difference between the Capitol rioters and the mainstream GOP. Any argument to the contrary is weak dribble, unquote. The board member hammered the point home by adding that there are plenty of scumbags all over the place, but the Republican Party is in the toilet. It's truly sad that this individual views the world with such hate and contempt, and I would submit that it absolutely affects the ability of this board member to represent almost half of the community. This member is not alone in the contempt towards the Radnor constituency. Another member of the board recently inserted personal comments during the school board meeting on January 26, 2020. During this meeting, this board member made a comparison between the actions of Radnor residents who are exercising their right of free speech to the actions of violent insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, 2020. I'm reading 2020 because that's what's written in the email. Perhaps realizing the overstep, this board quickly attempted to assure the community that this was not an attempt to directly compare Radnor residents to treasonous criminals, but the intent was clear and damaged the trust that we should have in our board to represent all of us fairly. The attacks don't stop here, unfortunately. The leaders in our school community, the behavior of board members sets the tone in our school community, and the poison has trickled down into the schools. One example can be found in a recent Facebook exchange between two elementary school teachers, one currently employed and the other retired, who both felt entitled to comment on the recent death of Rush Limbaugh, who lost a painful and terrible battle with cancer. Instead of demonstrating that love does not indeed trump hate, both teachers chose to engage in dialogue that began with, quote, good riddance, Rush, you despicable BOS, and continued with the response of, he was a bag of bile and I'm glad he is gone. Social media has made it so easy to be a keyboard warrior and publicly deride those you would disagree with, particularly when it's done in an echo chamber that cheers and applauds the derision when it's aimed at the other side. School board members are elected officials who are tasked with representing all constituents, not simply the ones they like and agree with politically. There are some on the board who have utterly failed in this capacity. It is impossible to accept that any board member who views society in such a binary way, us versus them, can effectively govern in a responsible and fair manner. President Biden has urged a spirit of unity in an effort to heal the wounds of this country. I too would encourage our local officials to accept this challenge. True leaders will do so because it is right. On the other hand, those who have engaged in hateful, divisive behavior have demonstrated that they are not qualified to represent this community and should step down. Jennifer Carter, 205 St. David's Court. Over the last year, Radnor Township has watched the steady descent of the Radnor School Board of Directors into mirror images of our nation's political leaders and the dangerously divisive culture pervading Washington, D.C. On January 26th, the RTSD board hit the tipping point when an RTSD board leader compared those Radnor citizens who supported keeping the Raider name to those criminals who rioted at the U.S. Capitol building on January 6th. This appallingly aggressive move serves to preemptively justify violence and hatred against anyone supporting the Raider name, and to brazenly intimidate Raider supporters into silence. The RTSD board leader's words on January 26th promptly spurred over 1,100 residents to petition for her resignation. To illustrate the magnitude of this, 1,100 resignation petitioners is roughly the number of students enrolled at Radnor High School, all demanding for her resignation. 1,100 resignation petitioners is roughly the same number as RTSD employees, all demanding for her resignation. 1,100 resignation petitioners is enough to fill up over half of Prevost Field, all demanding her resignation. This is an unprecedented demand for a school board director to resign. Yet when presented with this petition from over 1,100 voices, the leader's response was to ask the petition creator to contact her privately. Does this individual imagine that the demand for resignation is from just one person? This kind of magical thinking will only exacerbate the demand for her resignation. 1,100 Radnor resignation petitioners are very real. And if the board as a whole continues to ignore them, we will all learn how real each one is as we keep the petition rolling and fresh up until Election Day in November. At least 4 of your seats will be up, and you can be sure we will be the loudest voices out there, letting everyone know what you have condoned with your silence. Are you ready? Are you all ready for that? To this leader and all the board members covering for her, let it be known that hiding behind the convenience of virtual meetings does not make this problem go away. Your lack of action is strongly noted. Your meetings are watched and disseminated among all of us. Choosing to ignore this festering scandal while thumbing your nose at scores of Radnor residents while endangering Raider supporters only magnifies the problem. We as a community can no longer tolerate this face of true fascism. We will not be threatened or let our neighbors be threatened. We will not allow this ugly example of abusive leadership to serve our children so poorly. This RTSD board director needs to resign immediately for the good of every Radnor student and resident who you have betrayed. Leslie Morgan, Farm Road in Wayne, Ward 1. I may have missed your estimates, but I am asking for you to create a specific line item budget regarding the logo change or mascot change for the school district. Most of your township does not want their money spent on this while you continually and consecutively raise taxes. I know you espouse transparency, but factually, no one I have asked can answer the basic question. How much actual dollars will this entire overhaul cost? Before any vote should have been taken, the prudent decision should have been, can Radnor afford the cost of this change? How many actual residents want this? Are there private funds able to be raised by this small amount of residents? Lastly, and just a fun fact, the brand new crosswalk invested by the University of Pennsylvania trustees medical office building named it Raider Way as one of the give backs to the community in order to achieve their project approval due to the change in zoning. I believe Ms. Stern was an integral part of this planning process since she sat on this Radnor Township Planning Board at the same time. We can only assume she approved this plan understanding this aspect, and yet now wants all these costly changes during a time where maybe, just maybe, the focus should be studying all the private schools who somehow are managing to have in-classroom learning full-time without federal assistance. Please consider allocating your time and our money more effectively to achieve the actual goal of excellent education. George Hobson, 383 Wild Haven Road, Rosemont. Ms. Susan Stern and Mr. Andrew Babson, I'm going to make this short. The hateful rhetoric that both of you have expressed towards certain people in this community is totally unacceptable. As elected officials who should be bipartisan and represent our district in a positive and unifying way has failed miserably. Both of you are certainly unprofessional and do not belong on the Radnor School Board representing this district and community members. In addition, your thoughtless remarks do not set a good example for any of our students. Because of the lack of respect, divisiveness, and hate that both of you portray, I hope you do the right thing and resign immediately, as you both are a major problem going forward. Being in this community for 70 years and once a part of our educational system for 40 years, I've never experienced such brutal and thoughtless behavior by any elected official for our school district. President Biden has called for unity. Maybe you both should heed his advice. Dr. Sarah McGiddy, 622 Glen Mary Road, St. David's. It's time for our children to be back in school. We've had 1 year to learn, assess, adjust, and plan. Every indicator suggests that the risks outweigh the benefits of keeping our children out of school. You have heard repeatedly the striking statistics about student mental health. There has been study after study recognizing the safety of our current health and safety practices. The safety measures that RTSD is taking have been effective in keeping our students, educators, and communities safe. However, the damage to an entire generation of children has been irreparable. It is now time to do what is right. We do not have a week or day or minute to spare. We no longer can deny our children learning, the physical benefits of in-person schooling, and their mental and emotional growth. Full-time in-person education is the right thing for Radnor. From Bob Whitehead, 113 Lantoga Road in Wayne. Radnor students have long and proudly held a tradition of academic excellence that empowers them to become the bold, assertive, confident leaders of tomorrow. The RTEA statement released Friday regarding the decision to reopen our elementary schools shows yet again that the teachers union is failing to lead by example and meet the standards set forth by these students when they are needed the most. Our students deserve so much more. RTEA President Robert King stated that the decision to open schools was premature and that teacher vaccinations were vital in reopening our schools safely. That narrative is contradicted directly by the CDC report released February 2nd. Not only does CDC Director Walensky state, quote, vaccination should not be considered a condition for reopening schools for in-person instruction, unquote, and that, quote, the science has demonstrated that schools can reopen safely prior to all teachers being vaccinated, unquote, but goes on to say, quote, what we are finding from the science-based literature is that there is more spread that is happening in the community when schools are not open than when schools are open, unquote. RTEA President King states that the district's incidence rate remains near 80 per 100,000 cases. Given the CDC findings of higher transmission when schools are closed, wouldn't common sense dictate we open to slow the spread? Radnor is rife with yard signs that virtuously proclaim, quote, science is real. Do we believe that as a rule or only when science supports our agenda? For the RTEA to claim that the decision to reopen is rushed is insulting to every first responder, truck driver, and retiree working the checkout line at Acme. These folks have been at work since day one to ensure our critical needs are met. Are the social, emotional, and academic needs of our children not quite that crucial? For Mr. King to call the hybrid program, quote, well planned and implemented, unquote, is tone deaf and self-congratulatory. If he or 4 of the 9 current school board members had children in the district and had to navigate balancing the daily struggles of supporting and educating our kids who are fraught with anxiety and frustration as a result of social isolation and hybrid learning while working full-time, I suspect they would be a bit more proactive. Parents and students I've spoken with have called the hybrid program a lot of things. Quote, well planned and implemented, unquote, has not been one of them. We are where we are in February 2021. Hindsight is 2020. What we need now from our educational leadership is not a timid game of, quote, wait and see to limit union angst and liability. What we need is for our leadership to uphold and embrace the ideals of what they preach. We need them to prove that they are dedicated educators and have our children's best interests in mind. The science is now clear. The time to give our kids what they so desperately need and deserve is this moment. Full-time in-person school is the right thing for Radnor. Justin Henry, 116 Poplar Avenue. Susan Stern must resign for her comments, along with all board members who voted pursuant to their own agenda and jettisoned the Raider, thereby ignoring the popular constituency's vote. As a third-generation Raider and a parent of a fourth generation, I am offended at the board's actions. We need board members who are there for the community, not their own personal political agendas. Action is needed now, and it is not too late to do what is right. Carol McKeon, 6 Cornwall Circle. I'm writing to respectfully ask that you put the renaming process on hold until all of our students are back in the building. Getting kids back in school should be the priority, not erasing the Raider name. I read an interesting article about a school district in San Francisco where over 1,200 residents have signed a petition to recall certain members of the Board of Education, quote, for prioritizing renaming schools over reopening them, unquote. Please consider this and understand how important it is for our kids to have a voice in person when such an important decision is being made. Let them get back to school and then restart this conversation. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Gail Morrison, 11 Poplar Ave, Wayne. I want to call attention to the financial action items consent agenda. The first item notes that a contract will be awarded to the DCIU not to exceed 12 hours monthly for English language learner direct instruction. The rate says $113 per hour. This seems very high. Was it bid, and is this the best rate Radnor can get for this service? Matthew Marshall, 228 Walnut Avenue in Wayne. Today, as President Biden acknowledges 500,000 plus U.S. deaths from COVID-19, students at all Radnor schools are suffering severe emotional distress and mental anxiety from being out of the classroom for nearly an entire year. During this challenging period, the community has unified around the central focus of getting our kids back into the classroom. We have pleaded with the elected school board members to make this your focus, your sole focus. Instead, the members of the school board decided to further divide the township by ramming through the decision to retire the Raider mascot without a process and without knowing the cost for such an initiative. You collectively as leaders for the township could not pursue this endeavor at a worse time. The budgetary implications alone should make you pause or delay this decision, as many Radnor families suffer the financial impacts of the pandemic. The words tone deaf and out of touch come to mind regarding this board's current behavior. This board is missing balance, and we, the community, and particularly the students, are the ones suffering from your misguided agenda. On a comparable topic, just this week, the San Francisco School Board tabled a plan to rename their schools to fully focus on the reopening. They made this decision after residents started a petition for the removal of the school board for such an insensitive and untimely policy. As a 55-year Radnor resident, K-12 alum of Radnor Schools, and University of Pennsylvania graduate, and a parent of 2 children who graduated K-12 from Radnor, my wife Bonnie and I are perplexed by the motivation to go through a mascot rebranding project during this time of global pandemic. Radnor students and parents are suffering enough. Perhaps you could discuss this important topic during the public comments segment of tonight's meeting. Brad Burke, 416 St. David's Road, Wayne. We are grateful to have our son attending 3rd grade full-time starting next week. We are grateful for Ken Batchelor's leadership and for the elementary school teachers leading the way back to full-time. Our family's experience with virtual and hybrid has been challenging. I know we are not alone. I have been disappointed to hear that the RTEA has been an obstacle to returning to full-time education. I respect our concern for teacher safety. However, the evidence is clear that schools can fully reopen safely. In the words of our new CDC director, quote, vaccination of teachers is not a prerequisite for the safe reopening of our schools, unquote. Our community has historically had a constructive relationship with the RTEA. The last employment agreement with the RTEA, which is due to be renegotiated next year, received praise from both the Radnor Township community and the RTEA. We are now moving in a less constructive direction, one where discussions with the RTEA about employment agreements will become much more contentious. There's still time to correct the course. As we approach the 1-year anniversary of virtual education, we need an actionable plan to get the middle school and high school students back in the classroom. I strongly encourage the RTEA to engage with our administration on a full-time reopening plan for all our students. Megan Johnson, 219 Pembroke Avenue, Wayne. I write to you today as a resident of Radnor, a mother of daughters who attend Radnor High School, and as a human being who would like our community to regain some sense of normalcy and dignity. I'm asking that you please address the petition that 1,100 Radnor residents signed, asking for Susan Stern's resignation from the school board. The petition represents many voices, not just one. I find it troubling that it is so easy for a person in a leadership position such as Susan Stern's to lump together a large group of people who have an opinion that is different from hers and essentially liken them to extremists, as she did during the last school board meeting. My belief that it is not reasonable or right to remove the Raider name from existence does not make me an extremist. I have watched all of our kids struggle through the past year as they try desperately to find some life balance when everything is in their lives that they have come to expect and understand has been ripped away from them. I have friends who have children who are clinging to hope that their lives might someday soon return to normal, but who knows when. My daughters have friends who have lost hope this year, have attempted suicide, have been hospitalized for depression and anxiety, who are struggling with their sexual identities. These kids are scared. They are lost. They need people. They need us to help them. They need their identities back. Don't take away the Raider name, and don't compare me to an extremist because I believe that these kids don't deserve to have that taken away from them too. No one disagrees that the mascot can and should change. I'm glad the rebranding committee has been formed. But can we please try to find the compromise in this situation? I generally consider myself a moderate. I like being a moderate because I think it's essential in life to be able to see things from different viewpoints. I'm okay with disagreements and I'm happy to compromise because, in my experience and in general, if we can all work together to find common ground, everyone benefits. However, verbal attacks that marginalize a group of people make it difficult to hold the middle ground. Personally, I am tired of the unending politicalization of current events, of using these events as an excuse to insert politics into our classrooms as if that is the right and normal thing to do. We are all entitled to our own opinions, and we should have the ability to have reasonable discussions, even when we disagree. But do not encourage or force your political viewpoints on my children while they are a captive audience in their classrooms. That is not the job of the school district or the teachers who serve our children. It is possible to be compassionate, balanced, unbiased, and realistic at the same time, though it often does not seem to occur in the classrooms of Radnor. This is not the time to fracture our community beyond where it is today. Politics has done that to all of us. Each of you in your elected leadership position is responsible for listening to the community, for being compassionate, balanced, unbiased, and realistic in your decision-making process, and for putting our kids first. I think it is important to remember this. Each board member was elected to represent all of us and our children, not just the ones you agree with. You were elected to do a job that should not be based on your personal political motivations. You were put into your position to make sure that Radnor's educational system is something to be proud of, and frankly, many people are very proud to be a Raider. I respectfully ask you discontinue your divisive rhetoric and recognize that there are over 1,000 signatures on that petition representing Radnor residents who disagree with your categorization of them. As you listen to these community letters being read, don't roll your eyes or complain that it's getting late and you would like to go to bed. Listen to the people who put you in your position. Susan Stern and every other board member should be held accountable for her words and actions. Start to work together with the community that you represent. Seek out and welcome the diverse viewpoints and figure out how to compromise. You will be much more respected for that, and you might even be remembered for bringing people together rather than tearing them apart. Linda and Jerry Dowd, 801 Gaylor Drive. Hello, my name is Linda Dowd and my husband is Jerry Dowd. As Radnor residents, I'm emailing to voice our strongest support for restarting full in-person instruction. We can't understand why Radnor schools are still not open. Our daughter has successfully been attending Saints Coleman, John Newman, and Bryn Mawr, and has had in-person learning every day this school year, except the 2 days after Thanksgiving as a precaution. There has not been one instance of in-school spread. This has been the experience across the Philadelphia Archdiocese schools and other private schools. We recognize there are some operational differences between our school and Radnor schools, but it's clear by now that there is a proven pathway to successful in-person instruction that fully protects students, teachers, and staff. While we send our daughter to Catholic school, we still highly value the Radnor public schools and the positive impact they have on our township, hence our note. The severe educational and mental health negative implications far outweigh the exceptionally small risks of in-person education. I hope that Radnor students can get back to in-person learning for a mentally healthy and far better academic experience soon, and that the school board will take a holistic view of this issue and not cave to politics and/or an unreasonable teachers union. Dr. Allison Leff, 432 Holly Bush Road, Bryn Mawr. As we look forward to the opening of our elementary schools to 5-day-a-week in-person education, I do not want us to forget the needs of our middle and high school students. I urge the school board to move quickly in providing full-week in-person learning to all of our students. I'm a physician who works in nursing homes. From the start of the COVID pandemic to now, I have been taking care of at-risk patients and have been managing a COVID unit. Although schools and nursing homes are very different environments, allow me to share my story, since it may shed some light on caring for others' needs during a pandemic. When the pandemic began, I was given the choice to care for my patients via telemedicine. Although remote medicine may be appropriate in certain situations, it is not suitable for seeing patients. It is not a substitute for seeing patients in person. People need more than a voice from a screen. Almost all doctors, nurses, and staff have been showing up for work in person to make sure our patients receive the best care we can offer. When I see patients, I'm not able to adequately examine them while social distancing from 6 feet away. The nurses and CNAs do not give medications or bathe patients while socially distancing from 6 feet away. Doctors, nurses, and support staff often stand side by side as we take care of our patients, without any distance between each other or distance from patients who are infected and ill with coronavirus. We are protected by a multi-layered approach. We have face masks and eye protection. We use hand sanitizer and wash our hands. We follow common sense procedures. Despite the need for close proximity and the verified presence of coronavirus among our patients, infections and medical staff are limited, and we show up for work every day. Where did the recommendation to stay 6 feet away originate? It is believed that a retrospective study from the New England Journal of Medicine in 2003 titled Transmission of the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome on Aircraft first suggested that passengers on an airplane with a person infected with SARS could have contracted the disease if they were seated as far away as 6 feet. There were no masks worn, and the information on exposure was obtained retrospectively from 100 passengers 10 days after they arrived at their destinations. The World Health Organization recommends at least 3 feet of distancing based on studies of how tuberculosis droplets were transmitted. In an effort to clarify the guidelines, a Lancet study funded by the World Health Organization completed a meta-analysis of 172 observational studies on SARS, MERS, and COVID-19, all coronaviruses, across 16 countries and 6 continents. The conclusion? The best available evidence shows current policies of at least 3 feet physical distance are associated with a large reduction in infection, and distances of 6 feet, quote, might be more effective. They further state that these data also suggest that wearing face masks protect people against infection by coronaviruses, and that eye protection could confer additional benefit. A multi-layered approach is working in healthcare settings where the presence of the virus is orders of magnitude greater than in the typical school. Organizations from grocery stores to professional sports are operating with similar procedures. CDC, AAP, WHO, Harvard Global Health Initiative have all emphasized the importance of getting children back into school full-time. These institutions agree that utilizing a multi-layered approach to protecting all involved parties reduces risk sufficiently. Radnor has partnered with HUP to provide surveillance testing. Teachers have face masks, face shields, hand sanitizers, and good ventilation on par with the protections offered in nursing homes. For the sake of our children's education, quality of life, and their future, let's get everyone back in school. Reopen all Radnor schools for 5 days a week in-person education. Thank you for your time. Anna Moreland, 625 Cornerstone Lane, and Kim Kent, 712 Cornerstone Lane. Dear Superintendent Batchelor and members of the school board, as co-chairs of Radnor Reopen, the unofficial union to make parent voices heard, we are writing to thank the Radnor teachers, staff, and administration for moving toward phase 1 this week at the elementary school level. As one of our children said on Monday morning at breakfast with a big smile on his face, "Mommy, this is my last week of hybrid." We can't imagine the work that has been done to prepare for this educational shift, so thank you. Public health leaders across the country have finally recognized the urgency of reopening schools from a health perspective. From the CDC to Harvard Public Health to the American Academy of Pediatrics, there is a growing consensus that our kids are suffering in countless ways by not being in school, even those who are able to learn in a hybrid format. Last week, CCHD's new guidelines opened by stating that it, quote, recognizes and supports the urgent need to reopen schools, as in-person learning is vital for our children in all grade levels, end quote. Over the course of the last several months, parents have privately shared with us gut-wrenching stories about their middle and high school children. These health effects don't get counted on the cover of the New York Times. They don't get shared with you over public board comment. Parents want to respect the privacy of their children. They don't want them labeled with the stigma of someone with mental health issues. As a result, these children are suffering in private, but they are suffering in more acute ways than their age group does from the virus. These kids need to go back to school so that they can continue to develop into healthy young men and women. Over 120 public school districts in Pennsylvania have made a full return to in-person education at all levels. Most of these schools started back in September. The majority of private schools have been fully open K-12 since the start of the school year. In our own backyard, we have seen Central Bucks, Council Rock, Palisades, Pendridge, Quakertown, Satterton, Upper Marion, and Springford school districts bring back students in all grades. Just yesterday, Garnet Valley and Great Valley announced plans to bring back all grades. Other districts that have been behind Radnor are catching up quickly as well. Westchester and Wallingford-Swarthmore have been more reluctant to discuss return to school, but last night Wallingford passed a March return for elementary school children and Westchester for all grades. March 13th marks the 1-year anniversary of our district's shift to virtual learning. We are only a few short weeks away from having our students learning more from a screen than a classroom. Let's allow children in middle and high school who want to learn in person come to school 5 days a week. The hallways in the high school are empty. Freshmen have never had the chance to adapt to high school. Seniors are just months away from graduation. Juniors are facing SAT and AP exams without proper preparation. Sophomores have to transition from lower to upper level learning. Let's help them all end the year on a strong note, in school where they belong. Now, a couple came in you may have heard as I was reading, so I'm just going to get through these. We have, I think, 4 more. Maya Van Rossum, 716 South Roberts Road, Bryn Mawr. 1 year of a pandemic killing people. 1 year of people contracting a serious illness that can cause all sorts of serious health consequences that can plague them throughout the entirety of their lives. 1 year I got to have with my son because Radnor went to online schooling and delivered effective and safe education. 1 year I have had to love and enjoy my son. Another year I am grateful for. I think the attacks we heard on school board members and a teacher this evening are heavy-handed, unfair, over the top, and perpetuating the divisive activities they now complain about. There has been no effort to silence those who want to perpetuate the ongoing use of the racist Raider name and imagery. The school board, under the leadership of Susan Stern, has worked to develop and carry forth an open process for dialogue and to put our school onto a positive path for securing a team name and imagery that are respectful of all. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Kelly Martin, 313 Edge Hill Road. I'm writing today on behalf of the over 1,000 Radnor residents, alumni, parents, and students that have signed a petition asking for Susan Stern's resignation due to divisive comments she made at the January 26th school board meeting. You can view the petition and public comment at the following link. I've also included an attachment with the signatures. I'm also sharing a letter written by a community member on behalf of Radnor residents. To date, over 240 people have signed this letter asking for Ms. Stern to be removed from her position. I've shared this letter below so it can be read during public comment at the next school board meeting on February 23rd. I've included the signature file for this letter as well. The letter reads, we, the undersigned, ask that Ms. Susan Stern, president of the Radnor Township School Board, resign from her position on the board.
Mr. Petiti, can I interject for a minute? The letter that's being read, does the person that made that comment provide their name and address?
They did, and the letter that is embedded in the email has a signature line of the person who submitted the comment as well.
So the letter writer that you're reading provided their name and address?
Yes.
Okay, make sure that that's part of the record, please.
It's Kelly Martin, 313 Edge Hill Road in Wayne.
I thought you're reading a letter that somebody else provided to Miss Martin. That
it appears from the email, what I can see is that she included in the body of her email an intro to a letter that she wrote that she signed, in addition to sending an email introducing the letter that she signed.
Okay, as long as that's her letter, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes. Where was I? Mrs. Stern has demonstrated the patience of impatience, incivility, and intolerance towards both her peers on the board and the Radnor community at large. The most recent example of this was illustrated in her comments during the school board meeting on January 26, 2021. During this meeting, Ms. Stern made a comparison between the actions of Radnor residents who are exercising the right of free speech to the actions of violent insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. She asserted that the public statements of Radnor residents who questioned the process surrounding a recent board vote brought to her mind the actions of insurrectionists who violently opposed the results of the national election. She attempted to quickly assure the community that she is in no way comparing Radnor residents to treasonous criminals while doing just that. This common political tactic, known as gaslighting, allows Ms. Stern to hide behind her accusation with a caveat while simultaneously evoking imagery of violence and connecting it to those in our community who are peacefully exercising their right of free speech. In drawing such a parallel between treasonous criminals and Radnor residents, she has illustrated that she does not have a rational view of the community, and as such, she's no longer capable of representing us. Listening to those you represent is the #1 job of an elected official, and she has shown that she is unwilling to do so. Accordingly, we ask that she tender her resignation immediately, and should she refuse, we ask the board and administration in all due haste to remove Ms. Stern as president of the board and censure her, as her words are divisive to the community and do not represent the views of Radnor residents and school district stakeholders. Respectfully, Kelly Martin. And now we have Laura Ferran, Bloomingdale Avenue, Wayne. This may not be the most popular opinion, but folks, we have to get together here. Our students are not Republicans or Democrats. They are children that are counting on us. Stop the partisan nonsense. Get together and finish the plan to get our kids back in school. Susan and Angie should accept the criticism and apologize. We as citizens should accept it, and we all need to find a way back to a concerted effort to return all Radnor students to school. Several of you are guilty of mean-spirited comments. Do better. We can do this, but it's going to require real effort. Let's roll up our sleeves and find a way to meet. There's a growing sentiment in Radnor that our all-dem board is dismissing anything that smells of conservative thinking, and that is just wrong. We can do this, but you guys have to meet us halfway. I'll be waiting at the midpoint, and so will many others. Just stop the mean-spirited comments, please. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petiti. All righty, let's see. We're going to move into our report from board committees. And first up is the Curriculum Committee report. Ms. Solomon.
Thank you. The Curriculum Committee met on February 9th. We have some agenda items on the consent agenda tonight. They include the contract with DCIU and a new Radnor student club. Then we also received a lengthy, basically the whole meeting was devoted to technology education, and the audit findings. Technology education is in audit this year. The first part of the meeting was talking about district-wide K through 12 technology education, the courses that we have within the district, our STEM program, Project Lead the Way. And then the second part of the presentation was about elementary computer science and STEM integration plan. And just to put this in really plain language, this is a proposal to possibly offer a 6th special to all elementary school students. So currently they get PE, health, music, art, I'm missing one. Oh, and library on a 5-day rotating specials cycle. And the proposal or the discussion was, should we offer a 6th special? So it would be a 6-day rotation, and the 6th class would be computer science as a special in the elementary, computer science STEM as a special in the elementary school. That was the second part of the presentation. And then the last part was basically telling us the subscriptions and online tools that the district uses and all the different types of applications that are used throughout the education we provide. So that is pretty much a snapshot. I think I covered everything. Our next meeting will be March 16th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Facilities Committee, Ms. Dunn.
Hi, yes. The Facilities Committee had a somewhat quieter meeting this month. It was very pleasant. We took time to get an update on the accessibility and wellness project at the high school. Basically, we got to see the side-by-side timeline of the bid process and the financial process, and we took time to discuss that. We also got a very nice update from Mr. Dolan about the TAP trail. This is the Radnor Township project to improve some of the trails in the community and to add some pieces to it. For people who haven't heard, there will be a public trail addition along the Lancaster Avenue side of our property and up the King of Prussia Road side of our property. People who've been driving by there recently may have noticed some pink tags on a number of trees, a number of which are old or dying. Those trees are going to be removed to make way for the trail, but they will be replaced by many more trees than the ones that we are removing. The numbers fail me, but we're losing around 176 trees, and I think we're replacing them with 280 or so. And we had a lengthy discussion about how that'll work, the timing for that, because all of this will be happening probably at the same time that we're undergoing construction at the high school if that project moves forward. But just so a heads up to anyone who's listening, there will be traffic this spring in the Lancaster Avenue and King of Prussia area, and you may want to plan accordingly.
Ms. Dunn, I just want to tell you, so two things.
Yes.
Speaking with a commissioner who told me that because of the weather, the project's not going to get underway until March 1st.
Yes, it is a little delayed. Yes.
Right. And she also said the township's going to be putting out a press release because there's sensitivity in the community because of the situation that occurred on the south side of Lancaster Avenue. So hopefully TD or Ms. Gangle can coordinate with the communications department at the township because they are working on some kind of press release about the tap trail. I mean, they're really proud of it, but they also want to make sure that the community understands that this was done, permitted and vetted and the positive that it's going to bring to the area.
And that's one of the reasons I raised it here. And we talked about it at facilities. We talked about it at Parks and Rec. We do want the community to know. And then not from our meeting, but just as an update, the bids came in this morning and the steering committee will be meeting tomorrow to speak about how they came in and how everything looks before the next board meeting. The next meeting of the facilities committee is scheduled for Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Finance, Mr. Moore?
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on February 9th. It was a virtual meeting. You are all aware that our main priority discussion item for this evening involves financing for the wellness and accessibility infrastructure project. If you were able to view both the February 9th meeting and the January meeting, there was a lot of background that could be helpful for the discussion tonight. Other financial action items for this evening include contracts with DCIU, with Westchester and Drexel for academic affiliation agreements, pediatric therapeutic services for a behavioral technician contract. You may remember earlier in the meeting, I said, Mr. Batchelor, what do you need for us to move forward with phase one? There's an example of a contract on the consent agenda with asepsis for the disposal of medical waste that's part of the new testing program. So that's an example of something that's been added and actually something that's underway already and a contract that we are ratifying. In addition, there is a financial action item for Final Site. That was actually discussed more in the GRCC meeting. So Dr. Babson may provide information on that. And we have approval of PlanCon Part H for the previous work at the Wayne Elementary School. There is no scheduled Finance Committee meeting for March, although the administration and Finance Committee leadership are talking about having a budget work session as a public meeting, perhaps in March or April. So please stay tuned for that. And we appreciate your future flexibility in scheduling and participating in that budget discussion.
Thank you. Policy, Ms. Goldman?
Yes, the policy committee met on Tuesday, February 9th. And tonight you will see agenda items 13.1 through 13.4 have action items in them that relate to the work that was done at our February policy committee meeting. One of the items is policy 113, special education. This is now up for a second reading and adoption tonight. That was part of a routine review requested by administration. Also on our agenda tonight is policy 113.2, behavior support. This is now up for a second read and repeal. The material in that policy has been covered as part of the overhaul of policy 113, special education. Policy 217, graduation requirements. This is coming to the board tonight for a first read. The administration identified the need to revise this policy based on recent changes that the board approved regarding physical education credit requirements for graduation. And policy 226, searches. This is also coming to the board tonight for a first read, that the administration identified this policy for revision in order to reflect new procedures that will be implemented at the high school regarding the administration of breathalyzer tests prior to admission to school dances and similar school activities. Also on the agenda for tonight is policy 825, state mandate waivers. This policy is up for first read for repeal. It was identified as something that could be repealed, and in the event that a new mandate waiver program gets approved by the legislature in the future, not having a board policy on this topic will not prevent the district from taking full advantage of any such program. And like finance, policy is also not scheduled to meet in March. Our plan is to resume in April.
Thank you. GRCC, Dr. Babson.
Okay, so we met on February 9th. Mr. Rattidi announced a plan to give public updates through GRCC on the activities of the mascot selection and rebranding committee. Just as an aside, that committee had its first meeting on February 18th. They're going to have another meeting, I believe, on the 25th. Mr. Rattidi also provided an overview of our long overdue website redesign. So I think that's pretty exciting. The agreement with the final site is included in our consent agenda of financial action items. He also discussed our plans for a virtual legislative breakfast event, which we've been having for a few years now. We're tentatively scheduling that for the week of April 12th. So I put a pin in that. As a group, we also discussed the board resolution that we had passed in our January meeting to support prioritizing vaccinations for all PA K-12 educators. In our conversation, Mr. Jubiler suggested a change to that which is on our agenda tonight. There will be no meeting in March, and our next meeting will be tentatively scheduled for a regular time, the second Tuesday evening of the month, which would be April 13th at 7.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we are going to move into our priority discussion action items. And the first up is item 8.1, the RHS Accessibility and Wellness Project Financing Options and Parameters Resolution. And the recommended action is that the administration requests that the board approves the parameters resolution for the Accessibility and Wellness Project at Radnor High School. What I'd like to do is open with a motion and a second, and then we can get underway with the presentation and discussion. So do we have a motion? Motion from Ms. Duffy and a second from Ms. Dunn. Great. I'm going to actually turn this over to, I think, to Mr. Moore, Chair of Finance, and then Ms. Deco and the team can discuss it.
All right, thank you. The financing team is here as our guests again to walk us through what we are voting on. Specifically, as you saw from both the January and the February Finance Committee meetings, we are bringing to this board a recommendation. The recommendation that's coming out of the Finance Committee is to have a level structure and to have a wraparound structure for the financing for the infrastructure project. The financing team can walk through what those terms mean. And if you watch the January 9th meeting, we saw that council in that meeting was able to page through the parameters resolution, which is what sets the authority for us to borrow these bonds for the infrastructure project. And the recommendation from the Finance Committee meeting is setting the particular numbers that will be filled in that parameters resolution, setting out the authority that our bond council will have to go out and actually sell bonds in the market. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Deco for further explanation and the presentation from the financing team.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I want to thank the financing team for again coming to our meeting to talk about some of the options we've discussed at previous finance meetings. And I'm going to turn it over to Zach Williard, who is going to go through some of the options that the Finance Committee talked about, so that all the rest of the board members will understand how much time and effort has gone into trying to decide what is the best option for the district moving forward.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to pull up a handout that's, I think you've all seen different versions of this over the last kind of 18 months. Where'd it go here? And I'm gonna kind of give a little bit of a high-level overview of how we got here. Tonight is the board action needed in order to kind of move this process forward. And after we do that, then we're going to pass it over to bond counsel, who's going to talk about the resolution that you're actually going to be voting on. So first, real quickly, you have Zach Williard from PFM. That's me. You also have Lauren Stedell from RBC, your underwriter. Ed Murray from Benning and Scattergood, your underwriter. And then you have Josh Pasker and Morgan Haas from Saul Ewing, who is your bond counsel. So you got the whole team here. So we'll quickly go down this handout. So the interest rate chart, the good news is that interest rates have been, hovering around all-time lows really since COVID hit last March. So when you look at the bottom part of this chart, you can see that's where we are. There's been a little bit of I'll call it a spike, but it's a small spike lately. But overall, interest rates are extremely low levels, so that makes for a very, very good time to go out and lock in rates for this potential borrowing. This next page, I'm not going to read through this entire page. This is where I'm just going to kind of go back high level. So, we've been talking about this since I think the fall of 2019. The board's been working on this project and looking at different financing options to finance about a $25 million project. I understand you got bids back today, so we'll hear about what the final cost is later. So we've been working through all these different options. Recently, we've had a couple meetings. There was a January meeting, as Mr. Bradley said, and a February meeting where we went through kind of the final plan. And what we determined, and we'll show you some numbers here in a second, is that, over this planning period, the plan has changed around, but now that we're kind of at the final bid stage, interest rates are at all-time lows, which we didn't know would happen back in fall of 2019 when we started all this, that we're going to issue one single bond to fully fund the project. And we're going to use a wraparound debt service structure, which the district has used in the past, to minimize the budget impact of the borrowing. Okay, so those were kind of the two main points that came out of the last February Finance and Facilities meeting. So if we go to the next page, I'm sorry, 2 pages. This is your existing debt. So this is the page we always show you here. This is how the financing team monitors your debt for refinancing opportunities. You are going to have another chance to refinance some debt kind of sometime between now and the end of 2022. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that for you, and we'll report back, when the time is right for that. And so this is the page I meant to go to. So this shows the new single wraparound debt service structure for $25 million. And so what this shows you is in column 3, that's your existing debt now if you do nothing. So this is what appears in your budget, when Michelle puts that together. It's made up of all the different borrowings, which we just showed you on this page, because you have different series of bonds, but they all kind of go together like a piece of a puzzle. And then what you end up is with your line item in your budget, which is column 3, which shows you're at about $6.4 million every year. And so if we go out and we do this wraparound structure for a new bond issue that's going to net you, approximately $25 million in proceeds, in column 4, the wraparound structure shows you how it works and how it minimizes the impact. So you have low upfront payments through 2035, which is when your old debt pays off, and then the larger new payments on the borrowing wrap behind your existing debt. So the net effect is in column 5, you're going to go from columns 3 to column 5. So in your budget, you're going to be kind of running at a $7.4 million number going forward. So that would be the impact of this borrowing. We looked at level structures, which show that you pay back some of the debt, sooner in these upfront years, but the trade-off is you have a significantly higher budgetary impact. And so it was determined that, with all the operating costs that the district has that are constantly going up, that this would create more flexibility and more room in your budget to utilize the wraparound structure. It is going to be issued with the call feature, just like all of your debt is, so that in the future you can come back and refinance it or even pay it off if you're in a good position to do that in the future. But this was the most flexible option for your budget. So that is what is going to be shown in the resolution, is the wraparound structure. And then real briefly on timing, we are towards the end of the timeline here. Now, the way we set this up with the different committees and the administration was we were going to pass this debt resolution tonight, or it's going to be voted on tonight, whether you want to move forward or not. We're not actually going to price the bonds, though, until we hear back from Michelle and the administration on, the project bids and how all that went and what the final number is that we actually need to solve for. because right now we've just been using a kind of an estimated number. So once you hash out what that final number is, then the financing team will be ready to go. We do have most of the paperwork ready. We're going to have the credit rating back here next week, and we will be kind of just awaiting your orders. So that's it on timing. The only other thing that I want to point out is the maximum schedule, which is shown in the parameters resolution, does read for $27.5 million. That's just meant to build in some flexibility into the resolution. But again, we're going to be borrowing the amount that you tell us you need once you go through the bid process. And I think that's basically it. So any questions for me? I know you've heard this presentation quite a few times, but I'm happy to answer any.
Zach, it's a little hard for everybody to see. Maybe could you unscreen share for just a minute, and then we can see if the board has any questions.
Sure thing. There you go.
And I do, Mr. Moore, I don't know if you, we did vet this through the Finance Committee and, came up with a very clear recommendation. I don't know if you want to chime in on that or if anybody has questions.
I can summarize a little bit more about the recommendation. And I know that, and obviously the financing team could correct me if I misstate anything. So borrowing all of the money at once instead of in stages. That was one of the first things we had to discuss. And one thing that's happening right now is that interest rates are so low that some of the advantages of borrowing some money now, seeing how the product progresses, and then borrowing the balance within a time frame. Some of the advantages of that multi-stage approach are lower now. And so the Finance Committee said borrowing it all at once makes more sense at this stage. We had a little bit more of a robust debate about whether to do the level or the wraparound. Some of the points that were raised, well, the main point in favor of doing it, that instead of doing the level structure where you have the same amount of payment over the course of the loan, is that it saves $5 million or so over the course of borrowing. So the district commitment is lower. The disadvantage of that is that it creates an imbalance, so that there's a lot of costs that will be imposed right now, and really for the next several years, if you were taking a look at the timeframes associated with that. And I even, a little whimsically noted that even my 3-year-old will benefit from the wraparound structure, as we remain Radnor residents and as she eventually goes to Radnor schools. So one philosophical point raised in favor of the wraparound, it prevents a lot of immediate budget pain that can be imposed by having the additional district contribution over the course of the next several years. And one philosophical point raised was, that maybe there's equity that among different generations of taxpayers. We're not imposing a bigger tax burden on a particular set of taxpayers. It gets spread out over time because of that. And then, the other aspect of that debate was we have this feasibility study that's ongoing, and we know that we still don't know a lot of things about what our other capital needs are and will be for the district. So the wraparound structure potentially gives us some flexibility to, avoid some immediate budget pain for the period of the next several years. If we do have other projects that are coming down the road. And I think one philosophy that was expressed in the Finance Committee meeting was that one thing we do a great job of is maintaining our fund balances in this district so that we have the capability and flexibility to deal with capital needs as they arise. So I think out of all the board members on the Finance Committee meeting, I was the most in favor of that potential $5 million in savings by having the level structure. It's rare you get an opportunity to have that big of an impact, but knowing what that would do for short and medium term budget needs, I think led us to the consensus recommendation to do the wraparound. Anyone else from the committee have anything to add, or are there any questions at this point about any of that for the financing team, and what did all of that mean?
Yeah, well, the only thing I wanted to say about that, Bradley, is, because we did talk about the 5 million, is that, and and Zach, you can chime in because you and I have been we've been the bond refunding partners for the last 7 years now. And the one thing we did talk about is that even with this bond at historic lows, 8 years from now, there may be a refunding opportunity. And so there, by paying basically as little on it right now for the first however many years, 15 years, we may even realize savings on this bond, which would shrink the difference, the delta between the 10 million in interest and the 15, and we wouldn't have outlaid that money, in the upfront years. I don't know if I said that as well as you've said that, Zach, but we have the potential to save money on this down the road as the bond is only a 10-year, in 10 years kind of thing.
Yeah, the way, well, first of all, Mr. Moore's summary was very good. Did a better job than I did. So thanks for that. But yes, we would expect to refinance this in the future, even though we're issuing at all-time rates. The way municipal bonds work, it does allow for that without getting too far into the weeds. So, but yes, you're correct.
Lydia, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I have actually just 2 comments. So I actually went back and watched both of your meetings. And so thank you to bond counsel and not bond counsel, to the team of 3 groups that put that presentation together. And I think you've given it like 4 times now, but it's very helpful to hear it. So I actually listened to that and I heard, the committee's discussion on that, but I don't agree with your conclusion. I think $5 million in interest payments is a hell of a lot of money. And I don't agree with pushing our debt out 10 years for some other, poor school board to deal with. I believe in pay as you go. And so I don't agree with the wraparound, and I understand the purposes of the wraparound, but I think that we should do the level financing. And I do agree with the single borrowing. I think you're never going to see interest rates like this again. So let's go out, get the money, but I think that we should pay for it in a level format. That's just my opinion. I think that, again, it's back to how you view, how you should, finance your own home or how you live your life. And I think that we should pay for what we, are choosing to do. So that being said, I don't agree with the way you're funding it, but I am going to vote against this, not because of how you're choosing to fund it, because I think there's validity to the discussion. And I heard what you said, and there is validity to doing it this other way. I'm going to vote against it because I don't support this project at this time, as I've said before. So I'm going to leave it there. Those are just my comments.
Anything else we can help answer?
Yeah, I had a question, and some of it's a specific logistics question, but I may have a question that follows on, so be careful. You said, so this is an authorization to borrow up to 27.5 million. And that there'd be discussions that, if the board approves the final project at the high school, there'd be discussions with Ms. Deco about how much specifically gets borrowed. Is that specific amount actually get approved by the board when we approve the high school project or at some other point? Or by giving the authorization up to 27.5 million, are we saying that the administration can make that decision?
Well, maybe I'll let Josh and Morgan answer this.
Sure, it's a good question. So we would be delegating to Ms. Deco to give us the go-ahead for what that number would be. I presume Ms. Deco would be talking to the board, whether that's through the finance committee or Mr. Batchelor, about what that number is before we move forward. But we wouldn't go forward with actually pricing the bonds until we got that green light.
Okay, so and this goes back to conversations the board was having ages ago when we first started this about whether we actually wanted to finance all of it. We have a significant savings in our capital fund, which given how low interest rates are right now, it may not make sense to use it. It may make sense to save that and use it, like Mr. Moore indicated, for projects that may come up as part of our feasibility study. I guess my question was, did we have an opportunity at better rates, or is there a benefit to us that you can see, other than obviously the interest rates, of borrowing 25 or 20 instead of going to, or let's assume we get it at 25, borrowing 20 instead of 25. I think I remember previously that might affect our rates.
Well, the one discussion that I know we did have was, the cash that you keep is very valuable to the rating agencies. So when which we just, we're going to get the rating here shortly, but, they asked Michelle a bunch of questions about fund balance and what kind of cash is available. And that's a big part of your rating. So by preserving that cash, at least until after we get the credit rating and the financing done, that bodes well for the rating, which in turn is how Lauren and Ed go out and market the bonds and bring back the lowest possible interest rate, if that's helpful. And you're right, when you look at that interest rate chart, rates are at all-time lows. And as Susan said, we do expect to refinance this, and, you can't always pay down debt. We don't see that often with school districts, but you do have that option, in the future. If you decide that you still have money left over 6 years from now and you want to pay some of this off, you can do something like that, if that makes sense.
Well, and we've had pretty good luck with that in recent memory, at least.
Right. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. I think the answer is it depends. But I understand that keeping a significant fund balance is beneficial, making sure we can sell this at great rates.
Zach, I have a question. If I read the resolution, the parameters resolution correctly, you actually have an interest rate in there up to 5%, which I was surprised to see the number that high, given where bonds are, where the interest rate is on bonds. I know that you're not gonna buy a bond anywhere near that. So I was just curious why the number was set at 5.
That's just kind of the standard that we use for all of these around the state. We just assume 5% is the maximum possible coupon rate that we would have for this borrowing. It's similar to the 27.5. The standard is you upsize the borrowing by that amount in order for Josh and Morgan to kind of do all the things they need to do at the state to get this approved by DCED. So again, yeah, we wouldn't, the market rate right now, you're probably going to borrow it, below 2% or right around 2%. 5% would be much higher than that. Ed and Lauren, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, the authorization amount or the authorization interest rate needs to cover whatever sort of maximum coupon we may sell the bonds with. And as Zach alluded to earlier, the way municipal bonds are often structured is with premium coupons. So we may see 4 or even 5% coupons on the bonds, which is what generates the interest payments, but the actual yields at which they're going to be sold into the marketplace will be significantly below that. So it's that coupon rate that drives sort of the cross-check with DCED, which is why we often use 5 or even 5.5% sometimes in resolutions like this, just to make sure that we're covered if we do need, if the investors are asking for a 5% coupon on the bonds.
Because the real benefit to the parameters resolution, I know we've touched on this in the past, this is the way the district's done all of their refinancings for the past probably 10 years, is that we can get the board action done tonight, and then we can price the bonds when we're ready, when you give us the go, when the market's right. If you don't do this kind of maximum parameters resolution version, you're stuck to pricing the bonds the morning of your school board meeting, which, with choppy markets in today's world, all you need is some headline to totally screw up the markets. And we want to avoid that nowadays. So that's kind of like the main benefit to doing this maximum, where you have a maximum rate and a maximum principal amount, is right, so that we're not tied to your regularly scheduled meeting date.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And if you don't mind, if on that topic, I watched the TE board meeting last night. I know, right? And there was a discussion about a refinancing they were doing. And in that presentation, it talked about how there's a lot of volatility right now. and they've seen some changes, perhaps associated with the idea of an impending stimulus bill and inflation risk associated with that. So is what you just said the solution to that? Or is there also a sense in which, even a couple weeks out, we might even be losing some of the advantage we have of these historically low rates? Is there, what's the risk of, how things will look based on what you've heard about just even that recent activity in the markets?
Go ahead, Ed. I saw you unmuted yourself. We can't hear you. Ed, we can't hear you.
Nope.
Is your mic turned on?
We're gonna have to hear this from
we'll play charades to get the answer.
maybe Lauren.
That is correct, Bradley. There has been a good bit of volatility in the municipal bond market over the last really week or so. And we have seen rates, as Zach did allude to earlier, creep slightly over the past 5 days. Still certainly historically very attractive. Were we to be pricing bonds today, we might have had a bit of a pause in terms of maybe today wouldn't have been the best day with the volatility that we've seen. So with the resolution that is in front of you tonight, giving that flexibility that Zach mentioned earlier, gives us this flexibility in order to kind of wait until we see a little bit more stability and pick a day that works best for us, for the market in general, and for the district, with your timeline and knowing what your bids are going to be and what your cash needs are going to be.
And so, Zach, if you could just talk a little bit about the fact that passing this parameters resolution does not tie the district necessarily to do a bid, or to do the bond issue. It's contingent upon what happens with the review of the bids.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're not going to, act or go out into the market until, again, I think I heard that you're going to have a meeting to review the bids, and you're going to go through that process. And that's why in that timeline, we did push the pricing date back, the interest rate lock back a few weeks, to give you time to review the bids and give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down, or just maybe we go into a holding pattern. We have flexibility to do whatever it is you need us to do.
Okay. I don't know if we have other questions. All right. Well, I really do appreciate everybody's time. And I know that it feels like we've been talking about this for a very long time, getting ready for this. So, but I think it served us well to really have an opportunity to digest the process of, embarking on a bond financing. So with that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And all those opposed? And the motion passes 8-1 with Ms. Solomon I'm
sorry to interrupt. This does need to be a roll call vote, correct, Josh?
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It does, yep.
No, appreciate that. All righty. So then Ms. Deco, can you run the roll call? Oh, actually, I could run it. I guess I've never. Sometimes we have things that the board secretary has to run. Is this one that the board secretary has to run, Ms. Deco, or can I run it?
I think you can run it. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No worries. Let's see. Dr. Babson.
Aye.
Ms. Duffy.
Oh.
Aye.
Wait, sorry.
Right. That's all right.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Aye.
Right. Ms. Dunn.
Aye.
Let's see. Mr. Jubileer.
Aye.
Oh, Ms. Goldman.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Ms. Monahan.
Aye.
Ms. Solomon.
No.
And Ms. Stern is an aye. So the motion passes 8-1. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. We look forward to a good bond market and good news in a few weeks.
Okay, sounds good. We'll wait to hear from Michelle.
Yes. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. Okay,
All
great.
right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Alrighty, we are going to move into item 8.2, which is an additional resolution to request support for vaccine distribution. The recommended action is that the administration is asking the board to approve an additional resolution to prioritize the supply and administration of COVID-19 vaccinations to school district employees. And I will entertain a motion from Mr. Jubileer and a second from Dr. Babson. And I think since this was discussed at GRCC, I'm going to let the two of you take this away.
I'll just yield the floor to Jeff.
Great, super.
Thank you, Dr. Babson. Thank you. This, our committee and our board, I feel, will support this wholeheartedly. And just for the public and for everyone who may not understand the addition or the slight modification to what we've discussed last month, what we did is we called upon in essence, the stakeholder who could actually effectuate the change and prioritize our teachers and staff and all public school or all educators K-12 in Pennsylvania to be prioritized, whether that be in 1A or if it's not a specific category, to be given prioritization to get their vaccine. And we're calling upon the Pennsylvania Department of Health, who has the authority to act upon that and to prioritize our valued educators and staff to get vaccinated. And in this resolution, Acting Secretary Allison Beam in her capacity. So that's what we are. That was the addition to the resolution for which we passed last month. And you know, we can't beat the drum hard enough. We will continue to advocate. If I could just make this side comment. And I know as well, if we have learned that the Delaware County Council, along with Chester County, has a plan that Mr. Batchelor shared with us that is still on the table that would administer approximately 25,000 vaccines. They're ready. Our counties are ready to do so upon agreement, upon supply, regardless of 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it. That we would be obviously in wholehearted support of getting these vaccinations into our valued educators and staff yesterday, as soon as possible. So thank you for allowing me to share that and to be part of moving this forward.
Great. Yep. You know, we did give us a lot of discussion last month. I don't know if anybody else has any additional comment. Okay, well, seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And the motion passes unanimously, 9-0. Great, super, and thank you both for bringing that forward. We will direct that to the Department of Health. All righty, so now moving on to the consent agenda. Here we are. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. With the consent of all board members, they are therefore grouped and approval is given in one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any item, the board president will move it to an appropriate place on the agenda. So does anybody have an item that they would like to pull from the consent agenda? Yes, Sarah.
Item 10.3, please.
Okay, and Lydia?
Yeah, item 9.2, please.
Okay, 2, great. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Moore.
9.4.
Okay, 9.4. Any other items? Okay, great. Then at this time, I would accept a motion and a second to pass items 9.1 and then 9.3 and then 9.5 through 14.1, absent 10.3.
So moved.
And a second? Second from Dr. Babson. Great. So we have Lydia and Andrew.
I'm sorry, may I ask? I don't have a 9.5.
Oh, then I just misread. Sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. Thank you.
Let me look at the agenda quick and say that carefully. I was working off of a written list I had. So then 10.1 through 14.1 minus 10.3. Thank you, Ms. Dunn. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All righty. All those in favor? And the consent agenda passes 9-0. First up is item 9.2. Lydia, yes.
Yeah, I believe that you have me voting yes and no on that item in the minutes, and I believe I voted no and not yes, so I'd like that corrected. And I also would just request, I spoke a lot in that meeting, and I would just like the minutes to reflect something like this. That Ms. Sullivan.
Lydia, can I make a suggestion in the interest of time?
Yeah, I'm going to read this little thing to put in there.
Lydia, make a difference.
I don't feel it is the right time.
Lydia,
I'm trying to make a different suggestion. Why don't you just make a request that we pull these minutes and we'll get them corrected and present them next month? Because I'm not going to be able to write down everything you're writing right now. And
I'm just requesting a statement in there why I voted no. And
I understand that. So can we do that? Can we just pull the minutes and bring them forward next month?
so you send your written suggestion to Ken's office.
That's fine. If everybody's in agreement with that, cool.
You just want to pull the minutes. That's fine. We're going to pull the minutes.
Thank
you. Let's move on to item 9.4. Mr. Moore?
Thank you. This is about our district goals. We had a presentation where board members got to ask about the district goals, and board members one-on-one gave ideas that generated these goals. So we don't need a substantial discussion about them, and that's why they were on the consent agenda. But I did want to raise a topic for potential discussion at a future meeting, whether it's this meeting or a curriculum meeting, which I'll also raise as a question for the administration. And I let Mr. Batchelor know in advance that this was something on my mind. Taking a look at the first goal, the idea of developing and implementing instructional programs in response to COVID-19 pandemic. I wanted to put on the table, or at least ask the administration, how much our summer program for this summer, for summer 2021, is something that the district is focusing on with this goal. And in particular, just hear from the administration a little bit about what some of their thoughts are about the summer program. I was impressed with what we were able to put together for summer 2020. There were a lot of new offerings. We had the in-person ESY, the in-person hybrid math class. And then, for this coming summer, we hear from so many parents about the learning loss that their students have been dealing with. They bring that to us in comments all the time, and I take them at their word that that's something that we're struggling with. And so, how much the summer program fits into that is something, that we can talk about in a future meeting. I'd like to hear a little bit about tonight. And then number two, how much from the administration's point of view is, possibly extending the regular school calendar in June, something that we would discuss as something to address learning loss. So under the banner of this goal, I thought we could talk about that for a few minutes.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. That's a question you want to talk about at a future meeting, or you want to talk about it now?
I'd like to ask the administration what their thoughts on that are now.
Okay, great.
How they feel about whether those two ideas fit within this goal, without necessarily committing to them one way or the other. And, and if that doesn't engender further discussion, that's fine. I don't want to amend the language of the goal necessarily, but want to hear the administration's views on how those ideas fit within this goal potentially.
Great. So let's just, for housekeeping's sake, if you want to put forth this item with a motion, and then I'll entertain a second. That way, in case it evolves into board discussion, we'll have a motion and a second on the goals. Does that work for you, brother?
Yeah.
So if I have a motion from you and a second on the goals from someone on the floor, second from Ms. Dunn. Great. Now we're covered in the event anybody wants to discuss this. Thank you.
I'll just jump in then. Yes, that question about summer programming fits perfectly into this goal and is part of it. It was something that we looked at this past summer, and as Mr. Moore, as you mentioned, we did a program last summer that was very popular with our students and our families, and we're looking to build upon that this summer moving forward. And we can, yes, have additional conversation about that. The idea of actually extending school that concept because it is based on, contracts and, multiple contract areas. That is something that we can certainly have a future discussion about.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. And so, I have no objection to this goal. I just wanted to hear your perspective on that. To the extent the administration will provide further updates on the goal in general and those two particular ideas, is it fair to say curriculum committee is where that's likely to?
Yes, most likely would be curriculum. Definitely the summer programming will be through curriculum, and that'll be where we will talk about the summer programming. The idea of actually extending the school year, beyond just the summer programming, depending how far in depth, that could cover many different committees.
That's all I had for this. Thanks.
Alrighty, I don't know if anybody else has any comments or questions or thoughts on this. I do know that this is actually, Bradley, something I mentioned to Ken, I think in passing in a phone call a while ago, where I thought really an expansion of our summer program might be something to really look at, and in just my own personal opinion, another good use of the additional COVID dollars that we were just given. We need to, if there's ways that we can help make things better for the kids, then that's a good use of money in my world, but that's just me. So I'm glad to hear you guys I'm not surprised that you've already been thinking about it, Ken. So many things this year. Alrighty, so unless there's any other board comment, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of item 9.4? And this motion also passes 9-0. Alrighty, and then let's see, Sarah, you had item 10.3.
Yes, this was one I had thought about, and we actually had this was the one public comment that actually related to the agenda before us this evening. Someone was asking about the DCIU engagement, and my experience from finance and curriculum is that we wouldn't actually put that out to bid necessarily, but I know I had asked about this, and it might be helpful to members of the community to understand why we're asking for additional help with English language learners.
All right, so Sarah, again, I'm just going to ask if you could put forth.
So I would make a motion to approve 10.3. I just had a question about the DCIU piece.
Sure. So motion and then a second. I have a second from Lydia. Great. Actually, Lydia, you shouldn't even be voting on this one. So it's good that it got pulled. All righty. So could I have a second from?
Well, that's not really true, Susan. I mean, it has nothing. I've been voting for things like this. I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. Lydia, a second from Lydia. All righty. Great. So Sarah, you had the question about the expense then, right?
Yeah, if we could just get an explanation for members of the public. I know we have staff, and I think this is my general impression is that we're very stretched during COVID. We have extra needs, especially with so many people remote. But if we could just have a little bit of an explanation of that for people.
Yes, and I don't know if oh, Sean is jumping in.
There's Mr. Dukevich.
I'll let Mr. Dukevich jump in. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, so we have several contracts with the DCIU that support ELD, English Language Development, and our friends, not just in-house at Radnor, but also our non-public students who may qualify for services outside of our district. In this case, we're using grant funds. It's not actually district funds.
That's right.
It's a block grant, and the block grant is meant to support students who need additional services, such as ELD students. So in this case, we've been struggling with trying to get a second session with our ELD students who are cyber, just because the schedule with our ELD teachers in-house, we have 3 elementary ELD teachers, 1 for every building, 1 at the middle school, 1 at the high school, and just the time to see our cyber friends to the degree that we feel they need to. And so we contracted with the DCIU. It took them some time to find somebody, but it'll be about 10 hours a week to provide extra support. And again, it's funded through an outside grant.
Thank you. You had said, I remember that from curriculum now, and I appreciate that. So hopefully that allays other concerns people have as well.
I think there was another question during public comment though about, is the hourly rate typical?
It is typical. It is based on the DCIU contract, which we did negotiate some criteria with. I will say that it was supposed to be put on the agenda a month before, but we put it to work on some other things. But there are some other things that are really outside of our control, and $113 an hour through the DCIU is pretty common. And it's not something that we would bid out typically.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions? All right, then in that case, I will call the vote. All those in favor for item 10.3? And again, the motion passes 9-0. Great, super. Thank you, everybody. Let's see. And now we are on to liaison reports. The first up is the Delaware County Community College.
Thank you. So the Delaware County Community College had a liaison update January 25th. And I'm reporting on it now because I don't think we covered that in our January meetings. So included in the report were lots of information. They gave us updated enrollment numbers for the college from each of the 15 school districts, sponsoring school districts. One thing of interest that I want to just read is that the college anticipates closing on the purchase of the new Southeast Campus property in February of 2021. They will maintain the property until capital resources are identified to support the construction of the new campus. So I know that there was interest on our board about what was happening with that last year. And so that is the update. That's what we received regarding that. So they're hoping to close on it. They highlighted 2 new agreements that they have, one with Westchester University and one with Lincoln University. And these agreements are really wonderful arrangements. So what it allows students to do is do their first 2 years at the community college at a really reduced rate of tuition. And then in certain programs, if they reach a certain grade point average and take a certain course load, they can enter other universities, 4-year universities, as a junior, at junior status, and complete a 4-year degree with just 2 more years. So they have 2 new contracts agreements, one with Westchester, like I said, and one with Lincoln University. They have other contracts with like 9 different universities in the area where you can do this same thing in certain, tracks of instruction. So that's pretty exciting. And I think a lot of people don't know that. If you want to get a 4-year degree at a really reduced rate, let me tell you, this is the way to go. You go to the community college for 2 years, and then you can transfer all your credits, full credits, onto a 4-year university. And then they just highlighted some other things. They had a virtual commencement. They had numbers that they detailed for us about supports for student services at the college. So we did lots of exciting stuff going on. Our next meeting will be in April, where we will receive the budget numbers. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Delaware County Intermediate Unit.
The DCIU board met on January 6th, January 13th, February 3rd, and February 10th, since we missed our reports last month. And in the interest of brevity, I just wanted to mention that the Delaware County Technical Schools hosted many open houses in January. I believe that the Radnor High School students also had an overview presentation of what the technical school is all about. I think that took place on January 20th. And there have also been several school-specific virtual open houses for the respective schools in the Delaware County Technical School system, which include engineering and computer science, logistics and transportation, hospitality, tourism and human services, construction, medical careers, and health and biosciences. So there's a lot that goes on at the DCIU every month, and it's hard to encapsulate in one report. But of most impact specifically for our students, I think, is the fact that this is the time of year when the Career and Technical School provides its open house in case there are students who are interested in taking courses there that don't necessarily mean you're just pursuing a professional path. A lot of the courses that are available help provide credits for your pathway to college, and also inform, if you find something that interests you, which colleges you might prefer to go to. And again, it also supports you going straight to a professional path. So those open houses, I think, were up on the website until recently. I'm not sure that they're there anymore, in case anybody missed the open houses and wanted to see them. If you do, feel free to reach out to me, and I can certainly see if we can get access to those archives. The DCIU board will be meeting again on March 3rd and March 10th.
Great. Federal Relations Network.
Okay, so we've got a big event coming up in April. And I believe all board members have been made aware of it. I'm not sure who's signed up for it or not, but there's a virtual event sponsored by the National School Board Association. It's called their Online Experience 2021, the Conference for Public Education Leaders. It's going to be held from April 8th through the 10th. And you can go online and sign up. I believe the link has gone around, but if you have any questions about it, I've gone to the in-person advocacy day on Capitol Hill a few times, and it's really fantastic. And so I think they're trying to take a little bit from that event and kind of fold it into their national conference, which usually happens in the spring.
Sure. Let's see. We've got Pennsylvania School Boards Association. No, Delaware County School Boards Legislative Council.
And I believe I'm on both of those liaison roles, so I'll take these consecutively. The Legislative Council last met on January 20th. The main topic for discussion, in addition to items of pending legislation, was the governor's budget proposal. The governor's budget proposal would make an incredible difference for equity in funding in our state, while also ensuring that no school district loses funding while funding is made more equitable. It's a bold proposal. There is already discussion about how it'll be a challenge in the legislature for the governor to move forward with this. But to the extent that board members and community members would like more information on that, you can find that information on the DCIU website, and I'd encourage you to check that out. It is budget season, and it's time to talk about that. The next Legislative Council meeting will be on February 10th. With regard to the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, we will not have another regular business meeting before this event. So I want to make sure that all board members are aware of the planned virtual advocacy day on March 22nd, just under a month from now. Perhaps there will be an opportunity to talk about advocating on issues related to the governor's budget, which I just mentioned, and other issues that are important for representing our community and making sure that our elected representatives are hearing the concerns of people in our community. So if you're on the PSBA list, you should have registration information for all of that. And I hope you take advantage of the opportunity. Some other opportunities that PSBA is also promoting. There is an exchange that is open for all school board members. I have not participated in it yet. I believe it's possible, maybe Mrs. Goldman, you have. And so that exchange is now happening on Thursdays at 12:30. So check your PSBA emails for that. It's just another way in which, this virtual world that we have been stuck with is leading to surprising opportunities. Board members are able to come together and communicate in ways where that was perhaps not the practice before. And another opportunity, and I don't know, Mrs. Stern or Mrs. Goldman, if you've participated in this as well. There's a board leadership workshop series. So I don't know if you have any comment on that, but that's something that's also been promoted by PSBA. And if there's anything you'd like to share about that in a future meeting, please feel free.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Parks and Rec.
Yes, the Parks and Recreation Board for Radnor Township met on Thursday evening, February 11th. And was a wonderful conversation. You know, given everything that's going on, the Parks and Recreation Board, the Parks and Recreation Department is really busy. They have so many limitations placed on them, and yet they have really stepped up and recognized that the parks in this community are seeing even greater use as people are trying to find ways to be outside, even in the colder weather. They are planning ahead for next summer. For people who look forward to their summer day camp, they are still planning to do something like that. They're working with the district to see if we have any facilities that may be available. May be difficult for us this year with some of our construction, but I know Mr. Dolan has been talking with them about that. They have all kinds of youth soccer events and pickleball tournaments for St. Patrick's Day. They are not going to be able to do the extravaganza that they do for egg hunts at Villanova this year at Easter time, but they are planning some really creative alternatives. If you go to their website, there's more detail about that. They're talking about trying to find a place for mountain bike trails, looking at some plans for Odoricio. And then not so much related to the school district, but since everybody seems to have opinions about this, there have been some lively discussions about perhaps having some leash laws in the township or some kind of limitation on people having dogs running free. Specifically, the conversations have been about the Willows and Skunk Hollow. I think action on that sounds like it'll hold off until they can have meetings with public comment and people are able to attend the meetings. But if people feel strongly one way or the other, they should reach out to the Parks and Recreation Board about that.
Great, thank you.
And our next meeting will be the first Tuesday, or it'll be March 11th.
Oh, the Thursday, right. Radnor Educational Foundation, Liz.
Is the board last met on January 21st, and on February 13th, they hosted their first ever Ref and the Chef, which was a virtual event, and it was a really fun night for anyone who participated. They wanted to say a big congrats to the Hessler family who won a gift certificate from Au Petit Delice, and to an Radnor High School freshman, Sophia Kuzmenko, who beautifully piped pastry won. It was judged the best cream puff. I can tell you the Duffys participated, and we were definitely not a finalist on the looks, but it did taste good and we survived. So I considered that a success. So the next, they're going to have their annual benefit virtually on April 25th. And this year's theme is going to be One Night in Radnor, where they will celebrate the Radnor community with a fun night. The evening will include an online auction, a raffle, and great entertainment. They've already begun planning the virtual event and are looking for volunteers. So if anyone wants to help with the planning event, please reach out to REF. They're also looking for a volunteer to help review their technology needs in the office, including their email platform, their cloud storage options, and calendar sharing. So if you have any expertise in this, in these categories and want to lend a helping hand, please contact REF.
Great, thank you. Radnor High School Scholarship Fund.
Yes, so it is scholarship season. And while Radnor High School Scholarship Fund has been meeting in essence virtually as recently as last evening, February 22nd, the most important thing that I'd love to share tonight is that our seniors have an opportunity to receive scholarships between $1,500 and $2,500 each for 4 years. And the deadline to apply is March 24th. You can learn more by going to the district website, going on the Scholarship Fund's website, www.radnorscholarshipfund.com, or talking to your counselors at the high school. There are plenty of opportunities. You have a month from tomorrow, and it's a wonderful program. It is the heart of the scholarship fund, and we encourage everyone to check it out and to apply, because that's what it's there for. It's for our deserving seniors.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Radnor Page. Radnor Page, Sarah?
Sorry. Actually Radnor Page has kind of reactivated and is starting to meet again. We have not had a meeting yet, but there are active conversations to get something scheduled with the district. So more to come.
Great. Super. Radnor Committee for Special Education.
Yes, hi. The Radnor Committee for Special Ed met with Jenny and George on February 9th. At this meeting, they introduced new board members, discussed plans for ESY, and discussed what's working as well as challenges. The committee also is in communication with DEI initiatives to ensure that special needs and disabilities are included in the conversations. And probably the most exciting thing that's been occurring this month, and I wasn't able, given that the liaison reports were not given at last month's meeting, hopefully most have been seeing on the RTSD website the Pennsylvania Inclusion Collective series that has been occurring. The Radnor Committee for Special Ed, along with REF, are sponsors of this series, along with neighboring organizations with similar interests. It's a 4-part series. 3 have already occurred that have focused on inclusive education, inclusive virtual instruction, differentiation, and para support. And the final one is scheduled for tomorrow, and will focus on supporting students with behaviors that challenge us. And it's not too late to register, and you will be given access to the dashboard that you'll be able to see all of these webinar series. So I strongly recommend it. It is very informative, and you can find information. I believe it's been featured in the Radnor Reader, and I believe it's also on the RTSD website.
Great, thank you. Let's see, do we have any new business tonight? All righty, let me go right into board announcements then. Our next round of board meetings on Tuesday, March 2nd, we'll have a facilities committee meeting on Tuesday, that will be at 7 p.m. That will be virtual. On Tuesday, March 9th, we will have a special board meeting. That will be virtual. It will be at 7 p.m. On Tuesday, March 16th, beginning at 5 p.m., we will have our curriculum committee meeting, followed by our facilities committee meeting. That will also be virtual. And then our next regular business meeting will be Tuesday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. and that will be virtual. All righty. So now we have our new round of public comment. The board provides this opportunity at each regular business meeting for participants to comment on matters of concern. The board requires that the public be residents of the district, taxpayers, persons with a legal or contractual right, or persons recognized by the board, by the presiding officer as having an interest. We do ask that individuals' comments be limited to not more than 4 minutes as per board policy 006. And once again, as of November 24th, if you wanted to do a live comment, you would register on Zoom. Mr. Petiti, do we have any additional public comment this evening?
Yes, Mr. And one additional comment.
Okay.
It's from Allie King, 322 Bailey Road in Bryn Mawr. Members of the school board, thank you for your hard work and reflection this year. I'm the mother of 3 children at rest, and I volunteer my time for several RTSD committees. I watch school board meetings often, and I found it concerning when several school board members displayed partisan ideologies during some of the last few meetings. In the absence of collaborative governing, there is no way to accurately reflect or assume the opinions of all stakeholders. I implore the school board to consistently leave party lines out of local government and work together in a bipartisan way for the betterment of our educational system. I appreciate the opportunity to give my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, great. If that is the end of public comment, then at this time, I would entertain a motion and a second to adjourn. A motion from Ms. Solomon, a second from Ms. Goldman. And all those in favor? And the motion passes 9-0, and we are adjourned. Thank